Hello everyone and welcome to Palmdale, California, USA. My name is Patrick and I would like to welcome you to another fantastic episode of the Ultimate Cockpit Movies. Now, today we're not having a film about the Cessna 172, as you can see from the background behind me. This is one of the most unique cockpit movies you'll ever get to see anywhere, including on airclips.com. We are the guests of NASA and DLR today, the American and German aerospace administrations, and of the DSI, the German institute responsible for operating the SOFIA airborne telescope, which is mounted into this beautiful classic Boeing 747SP, an ex-Pan Am aircraft, still having a little bit of the Pan Am-like livery and still christened Clipper Lindbergh as it was back in the days of Pan Am 2. So what you are going to witness today is a fantastic science flight on board and in the flight deck of this unique piece of machinery here. DLR and DSI expert Oliver will give you a fantastic tour up front through this unique interior of this aircraft, show you all the scientists' working spaces and this fantastic telescope which is mounted into this aircraft. You can see a little bit in the rear of this aircraft there's a unique bubble shape that you would not see on any other 747 aircraft, and this is actually where the telescope is mounted, and in flight this whole door would open, slide open and give a free sky for the telescope which is in there. But you will learn all of this in this movie, along with a fantastic flight with our Captain Elizabeth and her crew. The walk-around of the SOFIA missions always happens at the same time when the mission briefing takes place, which I'm obliged to participate in, so I can't film that for you. But luckily we got flight engineer Chris. He's not flying with us today, but he was so kind to give us a little bit of an extra show, and he will show you later not only an iteration of the walk-around, but also he will show you some hidden places and even secret access into this unique aircraft. Welcome to NASA, welcome to DLR, welcome to a fantastic 747 SP experience.
My name is Oliver Zeile and I'm the lead engineer for the SOFIA telescope, and I'm going to give you a small tour of the SOFIA observatory. So we're now here in the nose of SOFIA. As you can see, these are still the old first-class seats from the original SP. But on this side we got these racks here, and this rack is actually the part where we switch on the instrument, switch on the telescope, and this is also the power distribution for the telescope. And also, if you jump a little, it's a really hard floor. So this is not your typical sandwich floor that you see in a lightweight, that you see in any aircraft. Actually, basically from where the camera is standing right now till here, that's all solid steel plates, and you got tungsten steel alloy, about 600 pounds of that in the front. And this is all the counterbalance for the heavy telescope in the back, which is about 17 tons. When the airplane first came into service, it was christened by the widow of Charles Lindbergh, and it got the name Clipper Lindbergh. And when NASA got the airplane, it actually kept the name, and the grandson of Charles Lindbergh rechristened it, and we still kept the name Clipper Lindbergh. So the airplane is still called Clipper Lindbergh. The entire thing is the SOFIA Observatory. So this station is for the mission director and the mission director 2. The mission director 2 was called the science flight planner, and this is more or less the job that this person does now. So the mission director is responsible for the observations and coordinating everything between the science team, the telescope operators, and the pilots. So if we have to change our course a little to help the observations, that gets coordinated with the pilots. The science flight planner actually checks that we are in position on time where we need to be for the observations. And for example, if the wind blows us off course a little, science flight planner or mission director 2 also can update the flight plan in real time, and working together with the pilots get that flight plan to the ground controllers, and we basically can continue our flight and update our flight as we are observing. Okay, so this station looks a little different than the other stations. It's way more mobile, and this is the reason, because this station is for the science instrument, and those computers are what actually control the science instrument, take in all the data, store the data, and every science instrument of course has its own suite of computers and servers to operate the science instrument. So all the computers here and this racks get swapped out with the science instrument about every 2 weeks, when we actually remove the science instrument, put a different instrument on for different kinds of observations. So, and this is now why we're here and why we're doing all this. So basically all the blue part is a telescope that is permanently installed. And right now here, this golden thing here, this is Hawk Plus. Hawk Plus is a fast infrared camera. And the special thing on Hawk Plus is Hawk Plus can measure the polarization of the incoming infrared light. And from that polarization, the scientists can calculate back to the magnetic field lines it's observing. So basically, Hawk Plus can measure magnetic fields that are around black holes and other galaxies and do science there. Basically, the scientists are trying to explain why black holes are eating mass at the rate it's eating, because some black holes are eating the mass slower than it should be under gravity alone, and they think that it might have to do something with magnetic fields around the black hole. So this is one of the science instruments. The science instrument gets swapped out about every 2 to 4 weeks for different observations, and together with the science instrument itself comes this rack up here, and this rack up here holds other electronics to control the science instrument, and it's also strategically placed to be a counterbalance to the heavy primary mirror that's on the other side of that bulkhead. Right down here on the other side is our 800 kilogram heavy primary mirror, and this also provides a counterbalance to that, because the entire telescope is only suspended by one point in the center of that sphere, and when we're observing, everything needs to be in balance. So all the mass here, the mass distribution here, needs to be in balance, needs to be the same than the heavy optics on the other side. For the observations, we can point the telescope from 17 degrees to 65 degrees above the horizon. So the telescope is always looking out the left side of the airplane. And this round structure here hosts the so-called Kurz drive, and this is used, it's basically just electric motors that turn the telescope up and down 17 degrees to 65 degrees. So any target higher than 65 degrees or lower than 17 degrees we cannot observe. Lower than 17 degrees also doesn't make a lot of sense to observe, because the way through the atmosphere is so long, and the water vapor in the atmosphere filters out the infrared that we want to observe. So basically we're not getting a lot of signal there. Anything higher is basically just limited by the opening in the back. We can't have a door or an opening in the fuselage that's larger than that. To actually point the telescope while the airplane is moving and thrown around in turbulence, we got the so-called fine drive, and that is located basically inside that ball that you can see here. So the fine drive is turning the telescope 3 degrees up, down, left, right, and also twisting 3 degrees, so basically in every direction. And this takes care of any tiny aircraft movements, and as I said, the turbulence. So in flight you will see this inner part moving, but you always have to keep in mind, if you see that moving, it's actually us in the fuselage that gets thrown around by the turbulence. The telescope itself is stable and pointing on the target and not moving at all. So if you get a little sick in turbulence, sit on the telescope, because that's the non-moving part, and that's basically what is stable enough. Our instruments here are filled with liquid helium and sometimes liquid nitrogen as well, which is actually heavier than liquid helium, and that gets boiled off over time. So this part, the instrument, gets lighter, and everything needs to be in perfect balance, which means if this part gets lighter, we actually have to compensate for that. And in here we got two weights about 84 kilograms each. They're on a spindle, and in flight they're moving ever so slowly towards us and compensating for the weight loss in here. So the fastest movement speed is for VFLS, which is actually 0.0037 millimeters per second, or over a 10-hour flight, it's about like 30 to 40 centimeters movement of those heavy weights. So for the scientists, there's a so-called call of proposal every year. So the scientists hand in what they want to observe, and then there's a board of experts that decides basically the merit of that proposal. So how likely is it that what they want to observe can actually be observed? How likely is it that it's successful? And how interesting is it for the science? So how new is it? And based on that, they get their observation time. And then once basically we know how much observation time we need for which instrument, the flight planners get together, and then it gets decided who gets which part of which flight for which instrument, and that gets planned almost a year in advance. The detailed plan for each flight is more or less like 3 or 4 months in advance. The biggest difference from the SOFIA telescope to lots of ground-based observatories is that a lot of ground-based observatories or amateur telescopes are actually on a parallactic mounting, which means that one of the axes is pointing to the North Pole in the sky, and it's basically just rotating around this axis. Since we're not flying in one direction always, and we're basically zigzagging all over the place with our flight plan, we have to have it 3-axis stabilized, which means we have to, and we can move the telescope in each axis, so X, Y, and Z axis, basically. And also we are operating the telescope with a mild earthquake and a hurricane going on all the time, because there are vibrations from the airplane. So the engines are vibrating, we got aeroelastic vibrations from the wings, all that stuff. That needs to be filtered out by the telescope and compensated for by the telescope. And also in the back, the optics, there's no window over the opening. So it's actually an opening. The airplane is flying at Mach 0.85, sorry. We're not supersonic. So 85% of the speed of the sound. And which means that a little bit of the air is actually going inside the cavity and trying to move the telescope. So this is the hurricane that's going on all the time. So with winds like that, normal observatories would most likely close their dome and call it a night, but that's what we are operating in all the time. We're special in that we observe infrared, and the infrared cannot be observed from the ground because it gets filtered out by the residual water vapor in the atmosphere. So we are taking the telescope above all the water vapor and then have a clear view of the infrared, and it's almost like observing from space.
To pressurize this dewar that's using liquid helium, and we use a transfer line that pushes the liquid helium out into our instrument, which needs to be kept at 4 Kelvin, and that is essentially what we're doing. We're filling the instrument with cryogenics. After the cryofill, we'll be performing an ADR, which is an adiabatic demagnetization refrigerator process, which brings the instrument below the liquid helium temperature. In order to do that, we have to do the cryogens first. So right now we're just going to be setting up, you'll see us connecting hoses and filling out paperwork. And so that's going to take a few minutes. The cryo transfer, maybe 20 to 30 minutes of just filling. That's supposed to be on. Essentially, this is going to take maybe 20 minutes, roughly. It's going to be a lot of waiting. a sensor right over here. That sensor is a percentage. It's not completely accurate, but it gives us an idea of where we are. We know it's full, not necessarily by the sensor, but from the plume. You have that cloud of helium shooting out. When it's full, you're going to see it's going to shoot out a lot more drastically. Until then, we're just going to stand here and wait.
Now we're on the upper deck, behind all the seats. This is where the galley for the first class used to be. And this is the wall of fame for SOFIA. So a lot of people who visited SOFIA did sign here. So we got Fred Hayes, Apollo 13 lunar module pilot. We got different shuttle pilots. Nichelle Nichols, the original Lieutenant Uhura, and she actually flew on SOFIA when she was here and visiting us. And we got Bill Nye the Science Guy. On the other side, we got different people like ambassadors to New Zealand, the German ambassador or the US ambassador, and they visited SOFIA when we were in New Zealand, of course. And you see, this is like one of the most famous children's science programs in Germany, Sendung mit der Maus, and the Maus visited us in 2019 when the airplane was in Stuttgart and visiting there. Different systems are here. We got our pressure bottles. One of those bottles is actually for the seal for the door. So this is more or less like a garden hose that gets inflated just to make sure there's no water coming in or dust coming in. We're in the desert here, so we don't want any dust coming in. But also in New Zealand, when it's raining, we got the seal inflated to make sure there's no rainwater coming in the cavity and dripping on the telescope. On this side behind you are two cryo coolers. Not all of our instruments actually use cryogens like liquid nitrogen, liquid helium that gets boiled off. We actually have one instrument that reuses the helium, and this is basically just the cooling mechanism, the cooling cycle for this one instrument. On this other side, this is actually the cooling air for all of the instrument racks of the telescope. So we got air coming up, cooling our computers, going through, and on the ground it's actually vented overboard, and in flight the seal is activated, and we're actually recycling that air into the cabin just to make sure we don't lose too much pressure.
My name's Chris Farina. I'm a flight engineer on SOFIA. I started out as a flight engineer in many airlines, different airplanes ago, about 1984. Started 747s in 2003 through 2012. Came to NASA 2014, been here 8.5 years. So I've been asked to show you what I look at and a walk around, a pre-flight of SOFIA, particular to 747 SPs. So if you're ready, we'll get started. We usually start right here. We come down the steps. First thing we look at up there is we see the angle of attack gauge, the small one there, and the two PDOT tubes. We want to make sure those aren't covered and they look free. And then we look up the windshield wipers. You see a little white dot right below the black windshield wiper. You want to make sure that wiper is on top of that, not below it. So in case you need the wipers, you have them. And we walk around to the front of the airplane. We don't see any, if we see any little holes in it, it means probably had a lightning strike and might have to be inspected. Same thing on this side of the airplane. PDOT probes, angle of attack, that little thing looks like a little wing. And we see that you see the white tab for the windshield washer. Inspect the nose gear and make sure, normally this pin would be removed. This tells you there's a gear pin in here. On a normal pre-flight, we make sure that's gone. A missing lug nut will be a no-go item, so we check every wheel for that. Look at general condition, tires are good. We note the steering bypass pin is in. That's so they can tow the airplane. But after we get engines to go to the engine start, maintenance will pull that out, walk out and show it to the guy in the left seat. So he knows it's been removed, so he has tiller authority on the nose gear steering. Check this wheel. Looks good. Check the pressure gauge, it's a normal pressure. Come back this way. Normally, this cargo door will be closed, and we check these pin alignments here. There's little windows in the door. So you check that. You look at the number 3 pack. That looks good. Now we start down the airplane. Leading edge, all intact. Retracted, it looks very good. Come now look at the engine. Red stripe is very important. In early 747s, they didn't have that. And they had some problems with the motor mount breaking some bolts. And they didn't know it, and then the engine fell off. So now, as long as that stripe's perfectly aligned, everything's okay. If you lose one of them, it'll tell you right away, so you stop an engine from falling off. Come back, look at the motor. General condition. Good. Good. Look at the engine, we look at all the blades, make sure there's nothing damaged. We look at the rim of the motor, make sure there's no loose rivets. If you got a bad rivet, we wouldn't want to go because it could pop out, fog the engine, or damage to the engine. So inspect that over. Come to this side. Look at the same thing. Except here we have these 2 little brown dots. Those are thermal relief discs for the 2 fire bottles, fire agent to put a fire out. If those aren't red, it means a bottle was discharged. We'd have to have that bottle replaced. Once again, we check for the same red stripe right there. They'll do this on all 4 engines. Look at the leading edge. Come on down. good. Looks good. Come around to the front. Sometimes you have to get back so you can see all the blades. They look good. Cowling looks good. Over here. Two thermal discs are good. Red stripe is good. Leading edge is looking good. If the APU is running, then the nav light's on. This is when you check your nav light. And that's where if you were to dump fuel, it'd come out of that tube there. And there's the vent for it. So we check, make sure that's not obstructed. Nobody's ran into the flap. They have the static wicks on it. It looks good. Going to our first main gear. We check this gauge right here. Make sure they're all within the same. Doors look good. Come back here. The wear pin indicators. You want at least a 1/4 inch sticking out. On the back brake. We got the nuts. Check all the lug nuts. Now we're going to check these wear pin indicators. These are easier to see. You want at least a 1/4 inch sticking out. We're going to check this. In this case, the gear pins are still in. Normally they'd be removed and you look at that hole to make sure it's clear. There's no gear pin there. So this gear is set. Come to the body gear. So right wing gear, right body gear. Pretty much the same. Check our wear pin indicators. Down there and there. They look good. These look good. 1/4 inch. We look in here. Don't see any leaks. Everything looks good. It's our APU emergency shutdown. If there was a fire, you could shut it down from here. Not have to be up in the cockpit. It looks good. One white tail light there. One tail light there, they'd normally be on. Right about there, that's the thermal disc for the APU fire bottle. Checking that just like we check the engines. Want to make sure that little red disc is on there. Come down here, so look good. Check out this outflow valve cover. That's good. Check the wear pins. Check the lug nuts. Check the gear pins. And on the left side, we're going to check that valve right there. That's how they service the hydraulics. They can select the 1 through 4 system. Make sure it's right there and it says closed. They're where they're going to hook up hydraulic fluid and take that thing, there's a handle, and pump it and service the hydraulic system. Wear pin indicators, good. And lug nuts. And lug nuts. Everything looks good up in here. I don't hear any. About a month ago, I had a bleed air leak up here. I had to get maintenance. It was actually blowing on the temperature probe for a brake overheat. If we would have took off, we would have had an indication of a fire in the gear well, which you don't want when you just take off. Unfortunately, they had to replace some seals, and we lost the flight that night. But that's what you're looking for and listening for. So, the gear pin is in, which it normally wouldn't be. Check our lug nuts. Now, if you look at this one, see how long that rod is right there. So 1/8 of an inch minimum. That means that's a brand new brake on that side. That side looks good. That nuts. Door looks good. That looks good. Pin indicators, they look good. And that pressure gauge right there. They're all the same, so it's perfect. Drain mass looks good. That looks good. Look at that stripe right there. Good. Blades look good. Cowling looks good. Two thermal relief. Good red stripe. Leading edge is good. Got a red stripe. Engine looks good. It's good on that side. Beautiful looking engine. The rest of the leading edge. Those are called taco doors right there. Those two valves, if you had an overpressurization, they would pop open to relieve the pressure, and the only way they can reset them is on the ground. So they look good. The door handle's faired, and your static here, there's nothing over this. Your static ports, I'm gonna make sure there's not taped over. Those look clean. Those look good. Your 1 and 2 pack intakes. It looks good down there. That's the drain mass right there. If somebody was upstairs and used the lab to wash their hands, the water would come out of that. It's heated in flight, so it doesn't freeze over. And that, my friends, is pretty much a 747 FE walk around. Any questions? You know the guy to send their questions to, and we'll get you answers. Up here is called the E&E compartment. It's where all the airplane electronics, most of them are housed. It's the first floor of the airplane. There's a ladder, instead of those great big air stairs, that you can send a mechanic down or somebody back up. And see, these are spring loaded, and you can retract them and pop them up. And once you get up there, there's another door that you get to the main deck of the airplane. Second floor of the airplane. Third floor is up the upper deck in the cockpit. So that's why it's provided an egress way out the rest of the airplane without having the great big air stairs.
Yeah, I'll climb up there.
You're now in the E&E compartment, electronic equipment. So where a vast majority of the electronic boxes that you can see are attached here on these racks. And then if you look around the corner, you can look into the lower cargo bay also, which is accessible in flight. And now I will go up into the main deck of the airplane.
Okay, we've got one more minute and then we'll start.
Did anybody explain to our guests the whole naming thing? Each mission is named. We did that after a while to keep track of the science mission versus the actual flight on the aircraft, because if we canceled, then they might try to reschedule that science mission on another night. And so each series just starts with the same letter, and I don't know who picks the names. Or on Q, which is not all that useful for things. And so last night was Quasimodo, and tonight is Queequeg from Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
We actually found it useful. It's a lot more memorable to have names than numbers. And it's been kind of fun as well.
Yeah, the numbers were a problem when we switched the order of the flights.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we're flying now flight 4 instead of 3, and the 3 instead of 4. And it's like, what? And everybody got lost. So it's like, okay, let's name them, and then it doesn't matter.
Okay, I think everybody is here. Welcome, and thank you everyone for being here for flight number 880, named Queequeg. I'm Liz Ruth. I'm going to be the pilot in command. The mission planner is Jeff Wilson. Co-pilot is Jim Less, otherwise known as Clue. Flight engineer John Duffy. Flight safety tech is Chad Hutchison. Maintenance ops engineering representative is Andy Levin. And mission director 2 is Charlie Kaminsky. So Derek, we are ready for the weather brief.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Derek, and I'll be giving you tonight's weather. Start off with the weather at takeoff. Winds are going to pick up a bit. We'll have a light breeze coming in this evening, 11 knots, gusts, occasional gusts up to 17 out of the west. The skies are going to be clear, and we'll be at 78 degrees tonight. So we can see a big low counterclockwise pressure system in the Gulf of Alaska, and pushing in some high clouds into off the west coast in the Pacific Ocean. So we can see the upper level wind pattern here. Jet stream not really organized with that low pressure, so not expecting any impacts out of that. Over the west, things are really light. Upper level winds are light. So I've circled just an area where there'll be some intermittent cloud coverage. Cloud tops looks like they'll get up to 36,000 feet. And that'll be it. It'll be a smooth flight, not expecting any turbulence or any thunderstorms. All right, so here's a graph of the precipitable water vapor versus time during the flight. And also the blue line indicates our altitude. So up to like 6, there's some areas where water vapor gets high. That's when we fly through that cloudy area. It's above 20. But as we increase in elevation up to 41,000 feet, moisture levels drop off, and not expecting any impacts at those levels. We can see on the graphic here water vapor along the flight path. This is 39,000 feet up in the teens and about low 20s in some areas. And 41,000 feet and 43,000 feet, water vapor drops off to single digits. So yeah, on the surface, weather looking really good at these locations: Travis, Beale, San Francisco. Just a few clouds, light winds, and then coming back for any alternates you might need are looking good as well in the Antelope Valley and LAX in Ontario. Just some overcast LAX, but everywhere else, mostly clear skies and light winds. Yeah, and then coming back to Palmdale, light winds, clear skies, and 63 degrees. That's all I have.
All right, any questions? Clue? John?
Not much
Okay,
going there.
that's the kind of weather brief we like to hear. Thanks a lot, Derek.
You're welcome.
All right, it looks like we don't have a lot of issues on the for the weather tonight. We don't have to worry about sunrise. If the door is stuck open and we can't get it closed, we can land back here at Palmdale. NOTAM review, both Jim and I looked and we didn't see anything that affected us tonight. A primary divert field, if we can't get into Palmdale, is Ontario. Aircraft status, Andy.
Okay, the fuel load is 217. The APU hour meter is stuck at 8318. They ordered a new part. Config change, you know about the 7 GoPro cameras installed. The tail nav light burnt out again last night. It's the same bulb, so they changed it again. So hopefully that'll work. And you know that the new FMS data loader is good. That's it.
All right, that's also the kind of airplane brief we like to hear. Okay, ground ops, I think we can just do a mini tow straight ahead. I don't think we need to go around the corner at all. We'll do our standard taxi route departure runway for runway 25. Takeoff and landing data considerations. Looks like it's dry and clear, good winds, so I don't see any.
Just brake energy for the heat, but.
Okay, so we'll look at brake energy. In-flight departure routing, we'll be doing the runway 25 obstacle departure procedure to Fish and then Florida. As soon as they allow us to turn, we'll take the turn and go to Florida, and then
We'll go to Ford 1.
Ford 1, yes, and then on to Catalina, and that should keep us on time. Planned recovery fuel is about 25.5. Seatbelt sign, it looks like tonight's going to be pretty smooth. We'll have it on below 10,000, and then as needed up above that. If we ever run into any turbulence, just let us know if you think we need to turn it on. All right, mission. Ellis.
Okay, well, you talked about departure already. Initial filed is 380. For your late takeoff, late 6 is your Bravo priority. For tonight, you got a couple B priorities, but that's your first B priority. Runway 7 shouldn't be an issue. I got you for a late takeoff, 06P01, you can go up to 13 minutes late, and the routing's on there. And that's really it. And then you come back in, you're going to go through the complex, just the edge of the complex, Rosie back in. So
All right.
No factor with daylight or anything like that. So pretty easy flight.
Very
Should
good.
be.
Again, that's the kind of briefing we like to hear. So coming back in, it looks like we have plenty of time to close the door and cage. I'll probably descend to the bottom of the block and the 4-1, and we can do that. We have plenty of time, and we can do a nice, easy descent through the complex. And we will follow the descent profile limits, no limit above 18,000, 2,000 feet per minute below 18,000, and 1,500 feet per minute below 10,000. And I'll plan to come back in the ether and an ILS to runway 25.
Do we have an ops number to go through the complex?
And it's coordination. You're not going through 2515.
Right. And we just clipped the corner of 2508. So I don't know whether they'll have us go around that or.
You get clearance.
We'll get clearance.
You have clearance. It's up to. I mean, at that point, it's.
But we won't have a poncho.
You know,
we won't have a poncho 3 if we don't have an ops.
You don't need an ops number. You just need a coordination sheet.
Yeah. Okay.
You got the coordination sheet.
And if all else fails, we'll just get
All right.
vectors around with LAX
Yeah,
and descend from there.
Arrival puts you through wherever they want at that point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, abnormal emergency procedures. If the door is stuck open, we will have a little time to try to get it closed before we end up landing with it open, and we'll go through the checklist and follow all the rules about bank angle, descent rate of touchdown, and we'll pull off and just face east, and then.
You may have time to actually, it depends on the timing, but you may have time to taxi all the way.
Oh, and we would get towed in, so we won't taxi with it open.
Why is that? Oh, because of the dust.
Yeah.
Yep. Engine failure anywhere on takeoff. If we have an engine failure, we can just stay here and dump fuel and land back at Palmdale. Anywhere else on the route, we'll take care of it, and if there's no further damage, we'll head for home or to an alternate field, which would probably be LAX or San Francisco, depending on where we are on the route. Any smoke that anyone sees, get your oxygen mask on first, establish pre-communications, let the other deck know what's going on, and we'll go through the appropriate checklists. En route diverts, again, it looks like we have a lot of good places to land. San Francisco and LA will be the prime targets if we're out over water. Passengers with special needs, do we have any? We're not counting the journalists under this category. Our next category is media, and so you do have some special wants, I guess. I think you will be interviewing people downstairs as the time allows, and videoing.
Moving on to the start of mission brief. This will be flight number 2 for Hawk Plus. Welcome back, Hawk. Good to have that instrument back up and running and on board the jet. This is flight Queequeg, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, and flight 880 for SOFIA. Timeline, mission brief is underway now. Door closed is going to be 1920 tonight. If all goes well, we'll be back here at 04:58 in the morning, just over 40 minutes prior to sunrise, so we do not trigger our mission rule 12 tonight. If we do have to come back early for any reason, we will meet back here in this room about an hour after landing. Okay, moving on to roll call. Pilots tonight. Pilot in command is going to be Liz Ruth. Sitting next to her will be Jim Less. And John Duffy is our FE tonight, already out of the aircraft, I presume. Okay, Chad is our flight safety tech. Hey, Chad. I'll be your mission director tonight, Will Montgomery. Sitting next to me as second mission director, Charlie Kaminsky. For those of you who are also flying Friday, it'll be pretty similar crew, I think. We'll just be swapping seats. Moving on, we have Sabrina at the SI tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, SI instrument operator and Jillian as telescope operator tonight. Okay, we have Simon and Steve as our 2 instrument scientists on board. Welcome. Ground ops procedures tonight. Anything to say about these, or are we doing standard ops?
It's going to be standard ops. The mini tow should be just straight ahead. The winds aren't sufficient to make us want to go around the corner. Again, something different than a typical airliner. We will start engines 2 and 3, the inside engines, in parking, taxi out on 2 engines, and once we cross runway 22, you can see the little airplane between the 2 runways. Once we get to that position, then we'll start engines 1 and 4. So standard operations tonight.
Okay, over to Elvis for our mission plan.
Okay, gonna go down the corridor, flight level 380, gonna be over the ocean for 85% of your flight, then coming back in through the complex and then back in for 8 plus 42. Lake 6 is your first B priority. I've got 1 late takeoff for you. Is due to geometry, it's pretty much you can't catch up. So 06P01, 13 minutes late. That's really it.
Okay, thanks.
So the science that we're going to be doing, you can just go to the next slide there. We're going to be starting off with Legacy Program 0800112. This is Enrique's project. Essentially, the evolution of galaxies is controlled by a sort of delicate interplay between gravity and turbulent motions and gas and dust particles, kind of like the turbulence we hope we don't feel tonight. There's radiation and powerful jets emitted from young stars and magnetic fields. And magnetic fields really play a fundamental role in the space between the stars, in galactic dynamics and winds. And Hawk Plus, what we're flying with tonight, is uniquely suited to study exactly a theoretical description of how all of this works together and how galaxies evolve, specifically focusing on magnetic fields and what sort of influences they have. This will be some of the first observations of the Antennae galaxy, which is a very popular astronomer's Valentine's Day card to give because it looks like a heart you can see on the right-hand side there. So it should be smooth all the way. Next slide. This one, of course, star-forming gas in a galaxy generally follows the spiral arms, and we live in the Milky Way. That has spiral arm galaxy. It's a spiral arm galaxy. So the densest parts of this gas form along these long cohesive structures that we call filaments, which are generally parallel to the galactic plane. And these filaments are huge. They're 60 to 300 light years long and 5 light years wide. And the dense filaments make up a sort of skeleton of star-forming gas in the Milky Way, and thus they've been called the bones of our galaxy. So these quote-unquote bones represent the largest star-forming structures in our galaxy, and previous studies suggest that magnetic fields are critical to their formation. So this team is going to use observations towards several of these galactic bones in combination with advanced physical computer simulations to investigate the role of magnetic fields and how they vary from place to place. So this is also really, really exciting work. Next, we have a study that aims to characterize the physical properties of neutral and ionized gas in a sample of nearby, clumpy, turbulent galaxies. And what's special about these galaxies is that their overall characteristics suggest that they are very actively forming stars. So usually to observe galaxies at the peak of their star formation, we have to look really, really far away to see very far back in time. And it's difficult to characterize galaxies that far away. So it appears that these authors have found a closer sample of highly active star-forming galaxies that we can study in more detail. So specifically, HAWK+ is going to be used to measure the dust temperatures of these galaxies. And then we're going to combine that with FIFI-LS data, which is another instrument that SOFIA uses, to derive things like gas densities, radiation field strength, star formation rates, and then link these findings to larger populations across all galaxies. And then finally, we're going to finish off the night with an exciting program. Basically, these days, we are fairly certain that the majority of stars form in these elongated, gassy, dusty structures that we refer to as filaments. And these filaments fragment under the forces of gravity and kinetic motion in gas and dust material and magnetic fields. So we see filaments like this all over the Milky Way and elsewhere, and they play a crucial role in the earliest stages of a star's formation. But we've really only had the technology to study them in exquisite detail like this for the past 10 to 15 years, not the least of which because of SOFIA. And there are still huge uncertainties in how they form and evolve. So this study focuses on a filament in the Polaris flare, which is a snazzy name for a nearby cloud that looks like it's on the verge of forming stars, but isn't actively doing so yet. So the goal is to analyze the magnetic field structure of the dense filament, characterize the sites of potential star formation, and this should tell us a lot about the formation and evolution of stars. Fundamentally, it should tell us about our own cosmic history as well, because keep in mind, when we look out at new stars forming, we are actually fundamentally looking back in time at our own sun and planets and cosmic history. So all programs tonight, this is research that actually specifically hits really close to home.
All right, well, let's have a successful flight. I'll see everybody out there. Thank you.
Mission flight deck.
Go ahead, flight deck.
Are you going to be ready for pushback or tow?
We will be ready. Let me get everybody seated. Chad's just finishing arming the doors.
Okay.
Altimeter 2986, wind shift at 0106 Zulu, sea level pressure 087, runway 25 in use. Expect RLS approach, runway 25. Reels out of service, advise on initial contact. You have information Romeo.
Okay, when you are ready, let's do the pushback tow checklist.
Okay.
Clue, let us know when you're ready.
Yep. Ready. Okay, aircraft power, I am on. The APU. Pack valves are as required. IRSs.
Nav.
Now, body gear steering.
Armed.
Emergency exit lights.
They're armed.
Brake select switch is primary, system 4, and mission, are you ready for tow?
Okay, flight deck, finally got everybody seated down. Main deck is ready for mini tow.
And doors are armed?
Doors are all armed.
Thank you. Door warning enunciators are checked when cleared by the ground crew, number 1 and 4 hydraulic systems.
1 and 4 clear.
Pressurized on 1 and 4, park and brake.
Set. Pressure coming up. Pressure is normal.
Shocks.
Removed.
We don't need a clearance. Beacon.
Both.
Seatbelt sign. Pushback directions, advise ground crew.
And ground, we just need to push or to tow straight ahead.
Straight ahead, copy. Ready for brakes.
Parking brake is released.
All right, here we go.
Clear it.
right, mini still complete, ready for brake.
Okay, parking brake is set. Pressure normal.
Seatbelt sign.
Let's turn it off for now.
Steering bypass pin.
Okay, bypass pin is removed.
Push back toe checklist complete. Before start.
Yes, please.
Name is FPR.
Okay, I think he's not. Name is FPR is signed.
Circuit breakers have been checked. Oxygen pressure valve open and checked. Oxygen mask and regulators.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Checked and set. Flight control power switches.
On.
Body gear steering.
Armed.
Anti-skid.
On.
Auto brake system.
Off.
Emergency exit lights.
Armed.
Fire warning has been checked. Mach air speed and stall warning has been checked. Nacelle anti-ice.
Off.
Probe heat.
On.
Window heat.
On.
Egypt whiz has been tested. Altimeters.
2986 with Romeo checked, set and cross-checked twice on the left.
2986 set, cross-checked.
2986 set. Cross-check flight instruments and bugs.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Checked and set. Auto flight panel.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Clocks.
Set.
Set.
Set. VMO mode selectors.
Normal.
Norm.
Radar.
Test and standby.
Test and standby.
Gear handle.
Down and in.
IRSs.
Nav.
Nav.
FMSs.
Loaded.
Loaded.
Flap handle and indicators.
Checked.
Checked.
And checked. Thrust levers.
Closed.
Start levers.
Cut off.
Interphone and comm radios.
Checked and set.
Checked and set.
Nav radios.
Set.
Set.
Transponder.
Alt on and standby.
TCAS.
Standby.
Engine instruments R7J checked, no exceedances.
7J check, no exceedances.
7J check, no exceedances.
Thrust is 1.44 takeoff E%.
That's your 1.44 takeoff E%.
Engine roll quantity's been checked. Fuel quantity and distribution is checked. Fuel use indicators are reset. Engine bleeds are switches are open. Brake source select switches still primary system 4. ADPs are off. Engine driven pumps are normal. Hydraulic quantities are normal. Before start checklist complete.
Okay, when you are ready, starting engines checklist.
Okay, starting engines check.
Yes,
Start
please.
valve. Arm switch is armed. Beacon.
Both.
Fuel panel, all boost pumps are on. Number 1 and 4 cross feeds are open. Number 4 electric hydraulic pump is still on. Parking brake.
Set pressure normal.
Chocks.
And grounder. Chocks removed?
Right now, be to your right.
Okay, well look, thank you.
Mission, are you ready for start?
Mission is ready for engine start.
Thank you. Door warning annunciators are checked. E&E is now out. Pack valves are as required. Duct pressure is checked at 40 psi.
Okay, I see chocks to the right.
Thank you.
Engines.
All right, let's turn 2.
Turning number 2. Start valves open. And 2. Oil pressure.
Cockpit N1.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
564 PPGT.
clear on 3.
Thank you.
All right.
Turn 3.
Turning number 3. Start valves open. And 2.
3 stay.
Thank you.
Oil pressure.
Cockpit N1.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
5. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
573 peak EGT.
Stand by, I'll be right with you. And mission, let me know when I can transfer power.
Roger, stand by. And FE main deck is ready for power transfer.
Thank you. Power transfer complete.
Roger.
How'd your guys' airspeeds hold up?
Yeah, it looks like it held.
Cool. Okay, generator breakers are closed. APU bleed air valve is closed. Number 3 pack valve is open. ADPs are continuous and auto. Starting engine checklist complete. Electrical system is checked. Crossover light is extinguished. Pack valves. Don't think this APU is going to handle another pack. Okay, go ahead. I got one on, but I got 2 ADPs going right now, so I think I'm just going to leave one pack on. Start levers, we'll leave that. Green band select switch.
Set light off.
Air conditioning is checked. Hydraulic systems are checked. Flaps.
Ground clear on the flaps.
Clear on flaps, go ahead.
Coming down. Okay, flaps are 10 planned, 10 indicated, green light D10.
10 planned, 10 indicated, green light D10.
10 planned, 10 indicated, green light D10. Fuel panel is set. Door warning annunciators.
Extinguished.
Extinguished. Skip that, we'll skip that. And mission, are you ready for taxi?
Stand by for taxi, we're getting there.
Stand by.
I'll give a call for our clearance.
Sounds good.
Palmdale ground, good evening, NASA 747 Heavy. Request clearance IFR round robin.
NASA 747 Heavy, Palmdale to ground, roger, clearance on request.
We should have a nice long sunset tonight.
At least we won't be staring at it on takeoff.
NASA 747 Heavy, please, ready to copy.
I'm ready.
NASA 747 Heavy, ready to copy.
NASA 747 Heavy, you are cleared to Palmdale Airport via the runway 25 ODP. Then as follows, for departure, climb maintain 7,000. Expect flight level 380, 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 124.55, squawk 7242.
Now 747 Heavy is cleared to Palmdale via the runway 25 ODP, then as filed, climb and maintain 7,000, expect 380, 10 minutes after 124.55, squawk 7242.
That's 747 Heavy, readback is correct.
Okay, we're back on time.
Yep, looking good. Especially since the takeoff slipped a little. We've got 21 minutes from taxi to takeoff.
Actual takeoff is 15 and 47 seconds, so we'll be pushing them up at 15.
That should work.
Jim Less approved technique, right?
Are you aiming to rotate at 47 or actually wheels off at 47? So you might need a few more seconds to get the wheels off. Yeah. Although we're light, so we'll accelerate a little faster.
If this is our biggest problem, we're doing really well.
You got to give us something to do up here, right?
Right.
And then when ATC doesn't clear us where we need to go, then all bets are off. But we're going to Ford 1, not Forda.
Yeah.
Flight deck mission. Final walk around is complete. We're ready for the seatbelt sign and taxi.
You ready for taxi? Thank you. Seatbelt sign.
On.
East's battery switch is armed. Transponder.
On.
Ground equipment and personnel.
Okay, ground, you are cleared off. Thanks for your help tonight.
Talk to there. Trying to help. Clean up to the right. Have a good flight.
All right, we'll look for you.
Palmdale ground now 747 heavy. Request clearance information Romeo.
Now 747 heavy, Roger. Information Romeo current taxi runway 25 via Sierra. Echo Papa. Cross runway 22 at Sierra.
And now 747 heavy copies. Taxi runway 25 via Sierra. Echo Papa cleared across 22 at Sierra. And we'll be looking for a 2016 local takeoff time.
Copy all.
And when ground equipment and personnel is cleared, before taxi checklist is complete.
Okay, everyone ready to go?
Ready.
Parking brakes released.
Palmdale Tower information Sierra altimeter 2988, runway 25 in use.
That 88 set will update the rest when we get a chance. You are clear right for left turn.
Okay, before takeoff checklist, we'll wait on the control check till we get past the gate.
Copy.
Okay. Brakes and steering.
They're checked.
And holding on control check.
Okay, gate looks open.
I concur, open both sides.
iPad gonna be clear when I do the control checks?
Pretty much.
Down. One down, two up.
I'll check the bottoms if you call the indicator.
We'll go. Two full left. full right.
And I checked the yaw damper before, so complete for the control check.
Complete.
Nacelle anti-ice.
Off.
Trim.
Okay, we've got 0, 0, and 7.4 set.
Altitude select.
7,000 set.
7 and holding on crew brief.
A lot of little birds flying in front of us.
Yeah.
Stay out of our engines.
They birds or bats?
I think they're birds.
Funnel's clear. Clear on the left.
Clear on the right. 10 knots. Ground now 747. Need to pause here on Sierra to start our outboards.
Roger that.
I think we're his only game in town tonight. At least for the time being.
Parking brake is set, and let's start number 1.
Okay, stand by. Pressure's 40 psi. Ready on 1.
1 is clear. Turn
Turning.
1.
Start valves open. And 2. Oil pressure. Max motor.
Okay, so it is, I see visually, and I've got cockpit N1. I have idle, fuel flow. Light off.
30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
604 peak EGT.
Ready on 4.
Clear right side.
Turning number 4.
It's already spinning.
Start valves open. And 2. Oil pressure.
Cockpit N1.
Max motor.
Idle. Fuel flow. Light off.
25. 30. 35. 40. 45. 50. Starter cutout.
585 peak EGT.
Crew briefing.
Okay, is everyone ready?
Ready.
Okay, this will be a left seat takeoff on runway 25. Runway is dry and clear. Weather is clear. We have no takeoff and landing data considerations. We have terrain to the south and west of us and no NOTAMs that affect us. On takeoff roll, call out anything you see. Below 80 knots, I'll abort for anything. Above 80 knots before V1, I'll abort for engine failure, fire of any kind, wind shear, controllability problem, something I don't want to take airborne. I will do the abort, throttle's idle, I'll get on the brakes, reverses up, back me up that the speed brakes come out. Jim, you call ATC, let tower know we're aborting, and John, keep everyone down, tell everyone to stay seated, we'll bring it to a stop and see what we need to do from there. After V1, we'll take whatever we have airborne. If it's an engine failure, we'll do the ODP, which is at 2.7 DME, which will be right here. I'll call for heading 020. We'll get to a safe altitude and cleaned up before we start doing any checklist. If it's anything else, again, we'll just turn back towards downwind, and we can stay here and assess the situation and dump fuel and come back and land. What we're planning for is to take off. We have the ODP, so I'm going to take off in FMS and heading select at 400 feet. I'll ask for nav, and that'll take us toward fish. And then as soon as they let us, we'll go direct FORDA.
Okay.
And climb into 7,000. And are there any questions?
Negative.
Negative. PFDs, MFDs, and nav.
I am set for departure.
Set for departure.
Fuel panel is sampled and set. And one thing I didn't do on the asterisk items was start levers.
Start levers are in idle.
And I've got everything else back here.
Okay, thank you.
Before takeoff, checklist complete.
Very good.
13 minutes.
That's good.
Not bad.
Pretty sunset.
See if we see more of it. I don't know if we'll get high enough, early enough to see the sun again. Make it close.
47 Heavy, whenever you're ready, you can taxi onto runway 25.
Perfect.
Now 747 Heavy, copies cleared on to hold runway 25. Not standard.
Okay, parking brake is released. I'm glad. I think they should do this all the time. Lineup check.
Lineup check. Mission, are you ready for takeoff?
Equipment verified with the groups.
Good to the right. A little bit of wind down the runway, but not much. Final looks clear.
Thank you.
The main deck is ready for takeoff.
Thank you. TCAS.
ATARA.
Pack valves, pack 3 and 1 are open. Want to do lights now or wait till we get on the runway?
We can do them now.
Lights, all lights.
They're all on.
Ignition is flight start and standing by body gear steering.
I'm up tower.
Body gear steering.
Disarmed. Parking brake is set.
Compasses.
Aligned with runway.
Aligned with the runway.
Heading bugs.
Set.
Set.
You want to hold on the warning lights then, or just since the brake is set, or just go ahead and call it?
Let's wait.
Okay, holding on warning lights.
Palmdale Tower, NASA 747 Heavy's ready for takeoff, runway 25.
That's 747 Heavy, roger.
That's not what we wanted to hear.
Not the requested response.
And Palmdale Tower, NASA 747, are we awaiting release or are we clear to take off?
Affirmative.
Waiting release.
That's 747 Heavy, runway 25, wind 21010, clear takeoff.
NASA 747 Heavy, copy, clear takeoff, runway 25.
Warning lights.
Checked.
Checked.
Checked. Lineup checklist complete. Engineers on hot
Okay,
mic.
standing them up. Releasing brake and set takeoff thrust.
Airspeed's live. 80.
80 here.
D1. Rotate. D2. Positive brake.
Positive climb, gear up. Nav, please.
Nav. Clear right. And traffic 800 above off the nose, we'll turn away from it.
Okay.
What's having contact, Josh approach, have a set flight.
Switching Joshua now, 747. See ya.
Flaps 5.
Coming to 5. Okay, climbing above the traffic, no factor.
Thank you.
Josh approach. Good evening, NASA 747 Heavy, passing 4,000, climbing to 7,000.
NASA 747 Heavy, Josh approach, good evening, the Palmdale altimeter 2987, ID.
Flaps 1.
Okay,
Set climb
2987
crest.
with flash. Traffic's well below.
Thank you.
Good.
47 Heavy radar contact 5 miles northwest of the Palmdale vortex. I'm going to maintain 13,000.
Yeah, climbing to 13,000 now, 747. Still clear to fish.
Yep. And flaps up. After takeoff check.
Speed's good.
And I see one through almost 1
Yeah, not
3,000.
quite yet. There's 1 3. Okay, clean.
Thank you.
I'm going to start asking for Florida.
Please.
And now 747 Heavy, request direct Florida.
47 Heavy, roger, turn right direct Florida.
Right direct Florida, 747.
Okay,
And
turn
we'll go
direct Florida.
Direct to Ford 1.
Thank you. For clean speed, I can go to 30 degrees.
Alright. And I'll update it when you get turned around, but you should.
Thank you.
Pretty good for a direct 2.
Accelerating. And you can get the seatbelts.
47 Heavy for higher, contact Delhi Center 132.5, good day.
LA on 32.5 now, 747 Los Angeles Center. Good evening, NASA 747 Heavy, passing 10,000, 13,000.
I'm sorry, I missed the call there. Next 747, you had 1113.
That's firm, 747.
That's 747, let's send a climb and maintain flight level 190.
Up to 190 now, 747.
Level 79 is...
I see 190.
We have him out.
190.
200, I have a restriction outside the gate. LA 4 Delta Delta level flight number 240. Number 4 Delta Delta Los Angeles Center, send via the Janie class, step maintain watch 4,000, altimeter under 87. 2987 for 54 Delta Delta.
After takeoff check.
Check level link check.
Now ready to check gear number 1 for takeoff check, standby transition.
Thank you.
Altimeters.
I've got 2992 set twice.
2992 set.
2992. All landing logo lights.
Off.
After takeoff checklist complete.
Thank you. So John, we're good for 39, right?
Correct. I was just going to ask you about that if you wanted to.
We'll go ahead and ask for it.
Los Angeles Center, NASA 747 Heavy, request level up, final level off of flight level 390.
I'm sorry, aircraft question 390, say again the contact?
Yeah, it's NASA 747 Heavy.
NASA 747 Heavy, 390 is everything.
Thank you.
47.
And NASA 747 Heavy, request cell call check, Echo Golf Alpha Kilo.
And are you CPDLC connected?
That's affirmative.
Okay, this is primary, secondary 8843. And cell call check.
NASA 747, good cell call check, copy 8843 secondary, will continue CPDLC.
Number 1369, contact Los Angeles Center, 119.05.
That was easy.
It was, and I'll take the radio back.
Hey, you've got Victor 2. You heard they cleared us to 390.
I did.
There we go.
Yeah, it helps us for the long nights to have a little brightness once there's not much to see out front.
Jim has more time in this airplane than anyone else, any pilot.
Wow.
We have a flight engineer who has more overall time.
And Charlie has the most downstairs, our mission director. Amazing.
So where did you fly before then?
So I just happened to be, I was one of the first pilots when we started flying science missions, and I've continued flying it all along. So just luck of the draw. This is my night job. My day job, I was hired to fly F-18s and F-15s.
Wow, and that's also with NASA?
Yes.
Super nice.
We're doing a lot of supersonic research.
So I think if I can catch you for a bit of an interview later during the flight, then I have a couple of questions.
Okay. I can easily make up a couple answers.
Thank you.
FE mission. Go ahead.
We are ready to open the URD downstairs.
I am on 606.
I'm on 606 with you. Enable disable switch in disable.
We're in disabled.
And rotor switch in close.
We're enclosed.
Okay, next page. URD seal is verified deflated. So step 4, enable disable switch to enable.
I am in enabled.
Okay, I'm waiting for data downstairs.
I've got data up here.
And good data downstairs. That takes us down to step 8, CDDS rotor switch to reset.
I am in reset.
I see reset, waiting 5. CDDS rotor switch to close. All right, this is
I am in close.
I see close, waiting 5. CDDS rotor switch to open.
I am in open.
I see open, waiting for motion.
I've got a door open light and showing movement.
Good motion downstairs, waiting for full open. Okay, I show motion stop, entering the AA set point down here. And that is in. Step 12, CDDS rotor switch to track.
I am in track.
Good tracking. I will enter the offset, and that'll be checklist complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good news.
Did you guys feel it when the door opened?
We didn't.
Stop at 2195.
I was expecting to feel nothing because everybody told us you would feel nothing, but I felt minimal lateral, pure imagination probably.
We just asked the flight engineer if it's open or closed because we can't tell. So we filed a flight plan that is very close to, but not exactly what they need. So we're good with air traffic control, but then when you hear them say 1 degree left or 1 degree right, that's Liz tweaking the headings of the telescopes just in the right direction. So yeah, the line here is what we filed, which is just a bunch of straight segments that approximates a curved path. We're actually going to fly more of a curved path.
And sometimes the winds are a little different than they planned, and so they have to adjust for that.
And then we drift sometimes away left or right of what we planned. But as long as we stay close, it's okay.
So we're off of your plan, but we're on our plan.
And we are clear to deviate up to either side, 20 nautical miles.
Excellent, thanks.
Accepting.
Thank you.
You're probably familiar with CPDLC or various similar data links.
Yep, we are.
So we can send text messages instead of voice.
And there was this like alarm bell sound, right?
That just tells us something's coming in.
Just a message.
Yeah. When we first started flying science missions, we did not have this system, and we would be out over the ocean making verbal position reports on the radio at every point that we crossed. And with HF, it's sometimes hit or miss. You'd be way out there, you may or may not be able to reach them. So we'd spend a lot of time on the radio trying to call San Francisco radio, telling them what we're doing. Much better to have the new modern equipment.
When was it upgraded?
I think it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah, the CPDLC, we got that after we got the glass cockpit. The glass cockpit was 2013, 2012, I think.
Sounds right. It was before I got here.
Yeah. We flew for about a year with all the old stuff, and then we got the new cockpit. But
How long did that take to put in?
The airplane was down for almost the entire year.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, what was the main reason for putting in a glass cockpit?
Mainly because the old instruments were no longer supportable. If they broke, it was tough to get parts. Lufthansa's done all the major maintenance through the years, so we've made a number of trips over to Hamburg.
My hometown. I enjoyed it.
It's nice there.
Glad you liked it.
And every time we go to the miniature wonderland downtown.
You miss out on that one, huh?
Been there at least 4 times.
It's so good, I agree.
It's surprising, when you read about it, you think, but then when you go, it's amazing.
It's really something.
See something different every time.
Exactly. I even posted a film on that on my channel. I will be showing a link right now.
The airport, of course, is great.
Because there's never traffic and you are always first to land.
Well, no, I'm saying the airport in the model airport.
Oh, in the model land. Okay.
Although we haven't seen SOFIA there yet.
Which is kind of unacceptable, I guess.
It kind of is.
I should file a complaint right here now.
The Millennium Falcon comes in and takes off and lands every now and then.
SOFIA not. I mean,
but not SOFIA.
Garrett is one of the guys, the gentleman running the show, so maybe he watches this and thinks about it.
So we don't have auto throttles that work, so we're always having to adjust the throttles for the speed, and they're not always lined up, as you can see.
Wow, that's a lot of constant work. Contact.
It can be.
Yeah, the auto throttle system on this was really designed only for the auto land, so on approach it will hold speed. but gives Liz something to do all night.
And that's captain's duty?
Yes, we always have the captain fly every mission. It's just the way we do it. And then we're all rated as captain, and so we just will swap seats every flight. So next time we fly, Jim will be in the left seat and he'll fly, and I'll sit in the right seat and do co-pilot duties.
I have to admit that I really love aircraft, still having a flight engineer. Really.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, I thought so.
So this was my first time ever flying with a flight engineer. I'd always flown airplanes that didn't need them. And I wasn't sure at first if I was going to like it, and now I really like it. Yeah, especially with handling the door and the mission systems, I think it's really helpful. A flight engineer has to do a lot of work making sure he maintains the temperature down there and the temperature to the instruments so that they work properly.
1 degree right.
1 right.
Yeah, it's not just the temperature for the scientists to keep them comfortable, which sometimes they're not, but it doesn't really matter because it's the telescope that matters.
Yes, the TA temperature telescope assembly. The telescope assembly that's controlled right here for the temperature. We just keep it mostly full cold. Really, you rarely adjust that, but we do have to adjust the temperatures in zone 2 and 3 occasionally, depending on which instrument's on board.
So that FE panel then would be really totally different as compared to other 747SPs, I guess.
No, this is actually pretty much the same except for this part. The other normal 747 wouldn't have anything to do with it, obviously a telescope assembly. But no, this is standard. This is an extra switch for the telescope assembly. This is on all 747s, your trim air switch for controlling temperature to the zones. But this is an extra switch that was put on for the telescope, and it's only through number 3 pack. If this pack isn't working, we're not leaving. You can go without one of these packs not working, 1 or 2, but if this one's not working, the flight's canceled.
And then we have this panel to the right side, which is there for opening and closing the door, right?
Yeah, obviously there's only one 747 in the world that has that.
This is the point where somebody usually says, "Are we there yet?"
Yeah.
You haven't seen my National Airlines 747 movie, have you?
No.
It was a running gag there. Are we there yet? Very funny. You mentioned it.
Yeah. Oh, we've got a countdown here. We've got 3,546 nautical miles to go.
Jim's the one who always asks.
Oh yeah, it's usually me.
It's quite something for a round trip.
He's used to fighter sorties that are less than an hour and a half.
Yeah. Why fly for more than about 1.2, 1.3 hours? Should be able to do everything you need to in that amount of time.
Ah, nice.
Yep. That was our deployment to Cologne last year.
All right. Yeah, that was so popular in German media.
Well, we started in Hamburg because the airplane was over there for maintenance. We did some test flying on it, then we flew it down to Cologne.
What we need to do is make sure we're at each turn point within 2 minutes of the planned time so that the astronomers can see the target that they need to see. And then that means taking off on time.
1 right.
1 right.
If we're early or late, then because of the Earth's rotation, the heading that they're asking for isn't what was planned, and we start drifting off of our planned route.
So if you, for whichever reason, catch 5 minutes delay in takeoff or 10 or whatever, what happens?
Well, our mission planner, I don't know if you heard him in the brief, he had some late takeoff options.
So he'll give you a late takeoff option if we're 2 minutes early or 13 minutes late. That's about all we had on this one.
Thank you.
But it kind of depends on the geometry of the flight. In this case, there weren't too many options. We basically had to take off and go west. If we take off late, we have to intersect our flight plan somewhere along the route where we were supposed to be at that time.
All right.
We can't just take off and fly the route 15 minutes late.
Okay.
Because the stars aren't in the right place.
Scientists would lose valuable time then.
And sometimes the departure gives you enough turns that you could make up some time, but not tonight.
We took off. We were joking about it. We took off maybe 30 seconds later than we wanted to, but we turned a little bit early at the first point, and it all evens out. At one time, there was discussion of electronically connecting the telescope to the autopilot so that they don't even have to tell us 1 degree right. It just flies the airplane so that the telescope is always looking at the star. And that would have taken a lot more engineering work to make that happen, and it's easy enough for us to just fly the right heading. We do have an auto land system, a dual channel autopilot. The airplane can land itself, but it's Cat 2 certified, so we can't do 0-0. We can go down to 100 feet, and if we break out at 100 feet, we continue. The airplane lands itself. And in Palmdale, that's not all that of a concern, but when we go to New Zealand, where they can get fog and other low weather, it's good to have that capability. A lot of our missions are fairly far south, at least down as far as 60 to 63 degrees, 65 degrees south is about as far as we go. But usually good opportunity to see the southern lights.
Oh, yeah.
We love going to New Zealand. Christchurch has been very welcoming to us, like Cologne was and like Stuttgart.
Yeah, Cologne would have been more fun if there wasn't a pandemic going on, but it was still a good time. We did a lot of outdoors things because most places, museums and stuff, were not open to go into, but we hiked up to castles and stuff like that.
Good.
Drove around.
The disappointing thing was that the restaurants were closed, so we
all
just
takeout. So much takeout. All these beautiful restaurants, it's all takeout.
So we didn't get a lot of good German food.
About a week after we left,
Did they?
They were scheduled to open the restaurants again.
So we didn't have any schnitzel the whole time we were there.
No, I found some schnitzel somewhere. I think it was a Greek place that sold schnitzel. It wasn't that good.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, actually, I thought the COVID got worse, and that's why we left a little early, didn't we?
No.
That was Tahiti.
That was Tahiti. That's right. But in Cologne, I don't think it. I thought it got worse there too when we were leaving. I guess we didn't leave early, but.
Yeah, when we left, a lot of the restaurants were building awnings and setting up tables outside on the streets, getting ready to seat people. But we missed that. Except for one of our flight engineers, who, when he did his COVID test to depart, he tested positive on one test. He tested negative on the next 4 tests, but they made him stay in quarantine in his room anyway.
No way.
Yeah, he stayed an extra 2 weeks alone.
In his hotel room.
Which gave him probably an extra 28 schnitzels.
Well, I don't know what he ate. He couldn't leave his hotel room. But he was able to order food out, and some of the Germans that we worked with that lived locally, they looked out for him and made sure he had stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It seems to be a very special employer, NASA. How did you 3 happen to get into this super special flying role?
Well, Liz was in the right seat at the right time, right?
For me, it was totally chance. I was on a commercial flight and ended up running into one of the NASA pilots. I just saw that he was carrying a pilot suitcase and said, "Oh, you must be a pilot," and just started chatting with him, and he told me about this job and told me how to apply, and I thought it sounded like the best thing in the world, and so I applied and eventually got hired. It was pure luck.
And did it turn out to be the best job in the world?
It did. Highlight of my career.
So I was in the U.S. Air Force, and I was approaching the point where I could retire whenever I wanted. And a guy I knew, didn't know him that well, but he was the chief pilot at NASA, at Armstrong where we work, and he sent out an email to everybody he knew that qualified for. They were looking to hire a test pilot to fly fighter aircraft, and so I applied and got hired for that. And then once I was there working, he said, "Okay, well, all our test pilots need to fly more than one aircraft. You need to fly a big airplane." And he said, "Do you want to fly the DC-8 or SOFIA?"
Oh, wow.
And I said, "The DC-8, that looks like a lot of fun." But he also needed to get checked out in one of the bigger airplanes, and he decided he wanted to fly the DC-8, so he said, "You're getting checked out in SOFIA."
Was that Nils?
But that was Nils.
One right.
One right.
I'm glad it worked out that way. This has been awesome. And
so I could see you enjoying the DC-8.
The DC-8 was interesting because at the time they were flying low-level routes over Antarctica, measuring the ice and glaciers, and that sounded like fun. But now this has been way better. I've gone all over the world with SOFIA. Been to New Zealand a bunch of times, Germany, Chile recently. I don't want to mention that other island that I didn't get to go to last night.
Have you ever been to Tahiti, by the way?
Hey, that's what we're not talking about.
That's a sore subject. It got canceled right before we were supposed to go.
Yeah, I was on the last one.
Yeah,
also.
we were all on the last rotation, and the COVID rates cases were going way up, and they decided to end the deployment early before the three of us got to go.
I'd been packed for months. I was so looking forward to it.
I've been there a couple of times, and I think it's a great spot. Should have gone there.
And I'm not even that much into beaches. I'd rather go to New Zealand than Tahiti, really. But I'd never been to Tahiti, so I thought it would be fun. Glad I didn't buy a plane ticket for my wife to
Yeah.
me.
Oh yeah, I know, but
I had one for my husband.
Did you lose that, or did?
Nope, we got a full refund.
Okay.
The way I got to NASA was there's a flight engineer here. His nickname is Moose. And I flew cargo for Evergreen Airlines for 23 years. Moose was our simulator and flight engineer simulator instructor. And occasionally he would fly for Evergreen, like doing ferry flights, but he wasn't on our seniority list, but he could still fly for us.
one right.
One right.
And I've only been here 3 years. 3 years ago, Moose calls me, and I was actually flying for Sands Aviation. Sands Aviation out of Las Vegas has two VIP. At that time, they had two VIP 747s. Moose knew I was current qualified. He called me and said, "You want to fly for NASA?" And I said, "Sure." And it actually worked out good because Sands picked up Airbus 340.
They're not operating the SPs anymore, or?
Oh yeah. They lost one in a hurricane down in Lake Charles. The other one is actually in Lake Charles right now, going through a C check. But yeah, that one will be flying. But it is for sale, and I understand somebody's looked at it, but they're not allowed to say who looked at it yet. But yeah, so Moose knew I was current qualified and recommended me. And if Moose recommends you, you get hired.
Good.
I think most of our engineers are Moose recommended.
Yeah.
It's a very small community, the number of 747 flight engineers still flying, so they know each other.
Yeah.
So I'm following someone on Instagram who's going through that test pilot school as a flight engineer. It looks very rigorous, very complete.
Yeah, and they don't have the resources that the military does.
after so much interesting information from the flying side, obviously the whole thing here is about science, isn't it? So I'm very, very happy that I'm able to meet Christian now, representing the science side of life. Christian, hi first of all, and thanks for having us.
Sure, thanks for being with us.
So, what's your role in the whole mission, please?
I'm an instrument scientist. So, instrument scientists, we are the linking piece between the scientists all over the world that propose to observe with SOFIA and the telescope and the instruments, and we prepare the observations, execute the observations, and make sure the observations are carried out in the right way.
And maybe, I mean, I see like there's a number of people and they all have these screens where I don't understand a word and I cannot interpret the pictures. So what are the different areas of responsibilities and roles that we have here on board?
Right behind us we have the mission directors, which take care the plane flies in the right direction. Behind those we have the scientists, actually the scientists from the Hawk instrument that we are flying today, and they are checking the data as it's coming in right now to make sure we're observing the right thing. Maybe signal is weaker, maybe signal is stronger than expected. We adapt and make sure we get the maximum return for the science.
Perfect. And now the whole thing here, what's the objective of the mission today, maybe for the understanding of a non-scientist? In the briefing we heard already a little introduction, which was rather scientific. In easy words, what are we trying to achieve today with this flight?
So we are trying to achieve multiple things because we start and land in Palmdale. But one of the big things on today's flight is actually we're observing multiple galaxies, different kind of galaxies. Basically, galaxies similar than our Milky Way or different from our Milky Way. And right now, for example, we are looking at a galaxy with a starburst, so an explosion of stars that is forming in that galaxy right now. By right now, we do of course mean millions of years ago, since the light has started traveling to us. And we try to understand how and why stars are forming in that galaxy. And today we investigate the role of magnetic fields, how magnetic fields contribute and control the formation of stars in those galaxies.
I understand that the great advantage of SOFIA is that we are above the distracting, what is it, humidity in the air?
Humidity in the atmosphere.
In the atmosphere. So why don't we just, you know, shoot, wrap SOFIA in a satellite and shoot her into the wherever, into the skies? And
that has been done and that is done. But SOFIA has distinctive advantages. We start and land every day. So the instruments and the technology that we fly can be repaired and upgraded every day. When you if you launch a satellite today, the technology that you fly in the satellite is 5 to 10 years old. Our technology is always up to date, and we can repair and we can recheck it. We need liquid helium to cool our instruments to see the infrared variation, and we can just refuel. That's not possible with a satellite.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a pretty convincing answer. And also, I think I understood that the telescope is the one thing, but you can attach multiple instruments for measuring different things to it. Is that?
Yes, we can change our instruments, and our instruments are big and heavy. The instrument right now has a weight of 600 kilograms, or roughly 1,000 pounds. That is a little bit too heavy for a satellite, so we can maximize our instruments and we change them every couple of weeks. So we can look at things from different angles, learn different things about it. Today we look at a galaxy and investigate the magnet fields. Next week we might look at the same galaxy and investigate the ultraviolet radiation, how it ionizes the gas around it. So we get the complete picture by using different instruments, looking at the universe.
So, in simple words, for me as a simple mind, you have the, in terms of photography, you have the lens permanently installed to the aircraft and you can change the camera.
That's exactly what we do.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, these cameras, they are obviously pretty huge. I assume the lens is everything behind that blue thing there?
That's the telescope. The telescope is our lens and the instruments are our cameras.
That's what we see up front here.
Up front we see the instrument, everything you see is the instrument, and the telescope is on the other side of the bulkhead in the stratosphere.
Okay, but this is huge. And if that's what you're changing, I'm asking myself, how are you doing that? 600 kilograms.
It's a process that takes a day.
And it doesn't fit through a door, does it?
It has to fit through the door, otherwise we wouldn't be able to install it in here.
That was my idea, but how do you do that? I mean, it seems like really, really big.
It fits. Maybe some parts come different and some are reassembled, but everything that you see back there has fit through that door. Everything that's not blue. The blue part is the Begleiten Sie Telescope, but the instrument itself,
wow,
it did come through the door over the last weekend.
So the instruments are specifically designed for utilization on SOFIA, obviously. Yes. So then I would assume that the measure of the instrument is determined by the size of a 747 door, right?
That is exactly right.
That's an amazing detail, actually. Thank you very much for having some extra minutes for us back here during the flight. And speaking about thank you for everything, for making this possible with your crew here.
Oh, we are happy to do it.
Thank you.
We do like to share SOFIA whenever we can, and so this was another opportunity to do that.
For how long are you with SOFIA now?
So I've been with SOFIA for 6 years.
6 years, okay. And before that you've been flying 777 with the airline, I think you were mentioning.
Yes. Yes. So I flew for United Airlines for many years. I was a simulator instructor for them, an academic instructor, curriculum designer, while I was a line pilot.
Sorry, what designer?
A curriculum designer.
Curriculum designer, okay, wow.
I was on the team that designed the first advanced qualification program, which was a different approach to type ratings.
All right.
So I flew the 737-300 while I was doing that.
Nice.
And then I went on to fly the 767 and 757, which was a common type rating, and then the 777.
Oh, nice.
Mostly on international flights.
So you're an all Boeing pilot.
Yes.
737, 747, 57, 67, 777. Ah,
yes.
Good. Oh, very nice. Have you flown anything else? I mean, commercially in your life, or was that?
Not commercially, but I started out in the Air Force. So that's where I got my pilot training.
All right.
So I started going through officer training in college, and I graduated with a commission in the Air Force and went on to pilot training from there.
Okay.
I flew T-37s and T-38s, which is what you fly in pilot training, and then I stayed on as a T-38 instructor for 3 years.
Nice.
After that, I flew a T-43 for the Air Force, which was a 737-200 configured for navigation training. So it was actually very similar to SOFIA in that as the pilot, we flew the airplane while the navigator instructors were training new navigators. Okay. And so we'd fly on a route while they practiced navigating, and we had 20 miles left and right of course so that they could
very similar
make their corrections. And then we'd have one big turn at the end and then come back. So about 5-hour missions. It was very similar.
And that was the military designator for Boeing 737-200, you're saying? Or?
Was it? Yes, was a T-43.
So even then probably the classic shape of the, well, now this one is heavily upgraded, but it's even a classic Boeing of the same more or less age and generation like this one.
Yes, very much, very much. And it actually flies very similarly.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know, they seem to have that same kind of Boeing true, honest flying characteristics.
Okay, nice. And now, I mean, for when SOFIA, should it come to an end later this year, what's your plan B? Do you have any?
Well, I fly another airplane for NASA, a Gulfstream 3.
Wow!
So that was my first non-Boeing aircraft for decades, and so that was an interesting experience to learn to fly. And that uses a pod on the belly of the aircraft to do ground mapping.
What makes it special for you, or is there anything that makes it special for you to fly SOFIA? or would you really consider it more a regular flying job as compared to what you've done in the past?
So it was actually a combination of my Air Force mission flying and airlines. It was really fun to come back to this type of flying where you were accomplishing a mission. You weren't just taking people from point A to point B. I say the biggest difference is that everybody's really happy to be on board SOFIA. It's not always that way in the airlines. You don't always have a lot of happy people. So everyone's very excited to be here. We feel like we're making discoveries that will help our understanding of the universe. So that's exciting. And I always loved the stars, always loved space. I grew up out in the desert and I just look at the sky every night and wonder. And I was back in the days when Star Trek was new and I watched Star Trek.
Fantastic.
And just the whole idea of space and what's out there was fascinating to me. So to come back to flying Air Force type missions, to being in the desert where I grew up, and to looking at the stars just feels like my life came full circle.
Amazing. Amazing. Did you meet Captain Uhura when she visited the aircraft?
I did not. That was before I got here. I would have liked that.
What a pity. Would you be interested in trying to fly an Airbus plane ever?
Oh, what kind of?
An Airbus.
Airbus? Yes, I actually would.
Oh yeah?
So I have been, Boeing my whole career, and I really was glad to fly a 747. But I would love to fly a new kind of airplane and see what Airbus is like. I have a lot of friends that have flown Airbus, and they seem to really enjoy them. So yes, I would like to fly an Airbus. And it's part of wanting to fly a lot of different kinds of airplanes, just seeing what the engineering is like and how the logic is slightly different. Yeah, I would like to do that.
Do you have that, independent of Airbus, do you have that one, Alice in Wonderland dream type of an aircraft where you say, be it a presently operated one or one of the past, once in my lifetime, if I had a chance, I would love to try flying that aircraft. Is there anything like that?
I don't know if I've thought of that. There's always an SR-71, of course.
Wow, that's the first time I saw that. Nice.
But flying a 747 was a big goal of mine. Somehow it just never worked out at United to where that was the right thing for me to bid. So I was very happy to fly a 747. NASA tends to hire very experienced pilots. And I don't know if you've noticed, all of us were, at least I'd say 45 years old and older. Yeah. So though they don't really train people up, they look for people that have a background flying a variety of different kinds of airplanes so that they can be adaptable to fly what NASA needs at the time.
Yeah.
And NASA, they don't tend to buy the newest, easiest airplanes, so they rely on experienced pilots instead to adapt to the airplane.
Well, I definitely confirm that's my impression that, we are in the hands of very experienced aviators here. That's nice.
Yes. And they also look for pilots with different backgrounds. So we haven't all followed the same path. We have some pilots that were totally civilian, some that were Navy pilots, heavy pilots, fighter pilots. We had one pilot who had been a lawyer and then flew for the regional airlines and then became a Boeing test pilot and then came to us. So it's really important that we have a variety of backgrounds so that we can get a lot of different approaches to solving problems.
Yeah, nice, super nice. Well, hey Liz, I'm just thankful for all these fantastic impressions here. I don't want to, bother you any longer at this point. I have a little token of appreciation for you, which unfortunately is rather stupid, and I know you're not going to use it, and it's totally fine, but maybe you find a shelf for it. It's just
I will totally use this.
Will you? You don't have to.
That's very sharp. I like it.
Thank you very much for doing this for us in the name of many, many, many people around the globe appreciating what you're doing. Thank you very much, Liz. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to looking over your shoulder during approach and landing.
All right. Well, thank you for being so easy to work with. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep. Wow. Now I feel important sitting here.
That's it. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't push any buttons there. No, I'm just kidding.
No worries, no worries. Hey Steve, thanks for taking the time for introducing us further into the beautiful world of science here.
Of course, yeah. I'm very happy to do so. It's the stuff that brings me the greatest joy. So
perfect. Thank you. Then we are happy if you share a bit of that joy with us. With us dummies, if I may say so, because
no, I don't think that's true at all.
At least, well, for me it is true, so no offense towards you guys. But, well, we already got a bit of a, an overview given by the crew and by Christian, about who does roughly what. But I was just looking at the screen up there, and I thought it looked like the result chart of a paintball game or something like that. So
that's right, yeah. Sometimes we say they look like Rorschach tests, so you can see a lot inside them, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Christian told me it's not, and you would be the right person to tell me all about the value of magnetic photography of magnetic. What is this?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'd be happy to. What we're looking at here is actually a series of gas and dust clouds that are forming brand new stars. So what we're looking at is the very beginning of the next generation of stars and planets in the Milky Way galaxy. So we like to study stars just before they're born, and what we do, SOFIA is actually uniquely suitable to do this, is we study the magnetic fields that are surrounding some of these gassy and dusty clouds. Essentially, there are three things that drive star formation. There's gravity that collapses gas and dust together. It pulls all of these gassy structures together and compactifies them to make stars and planets. There's the collisions between all of these gas and dust particles, which try to work against gravity. So it's this constant battle between gravity and kinetic motion. And then the third component is magnetic fields. And we actually don't know a lot about how magnetic fields influence the birth of stars and planets. So what we're interested in doing with SOFIA is figuring out the influence of magnetic forces on a lot of these clouds that are giving birth to the next generation of stars.
Wow, and how does SOFIA help you with that? I mean, why SOFIA? Why, I don't know.
That's a great question. So, as you might tell, we're up in the air right now. We're at about 43,000 feet in the stratosphere. Pretty high up, that's right. And we go up so high because the type of light that SOFIA observes gets absorbed by the Earth's atmosphere, which means that this type of light never makes it to the ground. We cannot observe this from the ground. It's a type of infrared light that these specific star-forming clouds emit. So in order to even see it in the first place, we must get above most of our atmosphere in either a plane like SOFIA or a satellite out in space. But even with all of the satellites in space, SOFIA is unique at what it does because of our beautiful instrumentation here. We're using an instrument called HAWK Plus tonight. HAWK Plus is what's equipped with the right technology to look at magnetic fields.
Okay.
And so this takes a lot of maintenance and a lot of work from engineers on the ground. So the good thing about SOFIA is that we land every morning and we can perform this maintenance and keep these instruments operating, and that's something you can't do with a satellite.
That's pretty convincing.
It's a long commute to go fix anything in space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Steve, I mean, how long are you with SOFIA?
So I'm actually a lot newer at SOFIA. I just moved out here in December. I've been working at a different telescope in Hawaii for the past 5 years.
Who are you?
I know, it was a tragic place to be, yeah. But I worked on a mountaintop at 14,000 feet where
Wow.
it snows in Hawaii, very, very cool. But we have very similar instrumentation that looked at different types of light out there. But I just couldn't resist the urge to come into the stratosphere, work with the most cutting edge technology possible, and do complementary studies with everything I've been doing in astronomy for 10 years. So
super nice.
It's a wonderful place to be.
And you're, you're obviously totally passionate about what you're doing. Which
does it show?
Yes, which is lovely. And this is what I always like a lot. When I come to talk to flight crews, which I usually do. I think it's as fascinating to have that in the science world here. So really my question would be the same that I asked the flight crews. How did you get into this? How did it all start for you, and which was your career path that you took until it brought you here today?
Well, okay. I'm actually from Canada, as my flight suit indicates, and
lovely.
I didn't grow up in a city. I was under dark skies, which means as a kid I really loved watching the stars, figuring out what the constellations are doing, and how to navigate that way. So I grew up with a passion for space, and I originally went to university to be a photographer or to find my way, and I took an astronomy class as an elective and ended up doing pretty okay in the class, and the professor offered me a summer job working in astronomy back in 2008, and so that's how I started. I took that job over the summer, went straight into a physics degree, and became an astronomer after that. So I ended up studying for, in total, about 10 years in university, and graduated with a PhD in 2017.
Wow.
So yeah, I was just completely taken with the idea that we could look at our own cosmic history, where our sun comes from, where our planets come from, and by looking out far away into space, learn something about our own story, which just inspired me to no end, which is why I'm here today.
It does inspire me now, the way you speak about it. It's
fantastic.
Really,
that's
it
the
really
goal.
does. It really does. Super nice. And also such a nice, guys, we're always speaking about aviation careers here, and I think we have a very good example of it doesn't matter really what the area of interest is, as long as you develop a passion for it and you don't let something obstruct you and you follow that path. That's the way to go, and makes you a happy person, I guess, eh?
Absolutely. There's challenges along the way. This can be a very high pressure environment, high stakes environment, but that's part of the fun, really, right? When you're up here. So I would say completely, no matter how you get set back, if you're truly passionate about something and it keeps inspiring you, always reflect on the big picture. Don't get caught in the details on what this specific image is doing. Remember the beauty of what you're doing in your job, and just reflect on that often.
Fascinating. Really, really, totally true, I believe. Yeah?
Fantastic.
So, getting back into this specific mission that started last night, I believe, now with Hawk.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
How long will this mission continue, and how will you determine at the end of this mission whether you've achieved your goals and hopes and wishes for it or not?
That is a really fantastic question. So we are on flight number 2 out of 8 flights flying out of Palmdale here in California. And then we're going to fly SOFIA down to Christchurch, New Zealand, and we're going to be flying out of the southern hemisphere for a few weeks there as well. So This is one of the amazing selling points about SOFIA. It's the only telescope you can take to both the northern and southern hemisphere to see all of the constellations in the north and in the south, which is very, very nice. To even get time on the telescope, astronomers from all over the place will propose ideas, and in that proposal they have to tell us exactly what they want to accomplish and why we should observe their science. As you might imagine, with limited time, this can be quite competitive. So we have very well-defined criteria at what issues a mission success for us. So the data that we're taking tonight and throughout this whole mission is going to have a tremendous legacy value for infrared astronomy around the globe. This data specifically right now is going to a large consortium of scientists, tens of astronomers strong right now, and then they'll be able to publish results from this for more than a decade to come because of the unique nature of this data that we're obtaining. So the mission success, we're doing quality assurance checks all the time, looking how the magnetic field looks, seeing if we see something new. So when we watch these images, we're actually the first people in the world to lay our eyes on what SOFIA can see tonight. And so every night is a success in that respect. Yeah.
Well, that so far I have to say there was a huge fascination learning more about this crazy technology in here. But I think just you made me understand the real point and value of and meaning of the whole thing. So that's and one detail you were saying, like it's basically not that one scientific objective that gets completed over all these days, but there's a lot of scientific submissions, and maybe even there's tonight you're accomplishing one of them or even more.
Yeah, on each science leg that we do, so essentially the telescope is on the left-hand side of our plane, so when we fly in one direction, we can see one area of the sky. We turn the plane physically to look at different objects, and tonight we've turned a few times. We're on leg number 9, I believe, so 9 different science projects, 9 different goals for 9 different consortia have already been accomplished, so that's a tremendous success.
And a different consortia means that scientists, whoever they are, or from a certain group, from certain universities or from any university.
Yeah, so SOFIA time is open, which means anybody can, anybody can apply for SOFIA time. And then we have, it's a double-blind process where we have independent reviewers who look over all the science, and here people like me look over all of the technical details. Generally, to propose at a place like this, you need to have a strong scientific background, a PhD in astronomy, to be able to formulate these things. But yeah, universities from all over America, all over Germany, different parts of the world, coming together to do science. And what's nice is all of this data becomes public for everybody if they ever want to see these images, because everything that's taken on SOFIA eventually does become just public on the internet. So if you're bored, you can go download SOFIA data, look at all these maps and learn about it yourself. Read the papers that scientists put out there and learn about our own cosmic history.
That's absolutely mind-blowing. So that means that if we are accomplishing 9 of these projects tonight, and like 9 groups of scientists somewhere out there in the world must have their sleepless night right now, the big day after whatever months or years of preparation, submission, excitement. Is that true?
Yeah, sometimes we do year-long cycles. So everybody proposes for observations, and then we say, okay, during this year we're going to go try to observe your project. And so we inform them when we're going to be observing their project, when it's scheduled for that night. And then in the morning, all of the work that we're doing here, hopefully they're going to wake up to a nice email wherever they are in the world to say, we got your data, it looks beautiful, you can start to work with it almost right away.
I doubt they will wake up, because I doubt they can sleep that night. But
it is very, very exciting. And like I say, SOFIA is the only telescope on Earth or above the Earth, as we are right now, who does what it does. So without SOFIA, we would have a tremendous gap in infrared astronomy knowledge for at least 15 or 20 years before we build another satellite or another plane to replace that knowledge. So it would be a shockwave around the world in the astronomy community.
And that sounds like it is a nightmare becoming true.
There's definitely some concerns, of funding always from time to time, and it sounds like things are either ramping up or ramping down, but you know, I'm still holding out a lot of hope.
Knock on wood.
And
Knock on wood.
I know that the data that we're collecting right now is going to have tremendous value for years to come either way.
Thank you so much for these super enthusiastic insights. Extremely exciting for me.
Well, yeah, I love talking about this stuff, and thanks for coming on board and doing what you do too, because it's really great to get the word out on all of these different careers you can have. Because, you know, I knew 5-10 years ago even, I never knew I'd be sitting on a plane for my job. I mean, it's like a dream come true. I can't imagine that I get paid to do this. Yeah. Fantastic.
Super.
Yeah.
Steve,
right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All the best for your further career and all your projects.
I appreciate
Best of
it.
luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you give us the full list of aircraft types that you have worked yourself through?
Okay.
During your career, that would just be awesome. It's not very often that I get a chance to interview a former military pilot.
Okay. So I started out, I didn't go to the Air Force Academy, I went through college, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which you've probably never heard of, but
nope.
Reserve Officer Training Program. So I did my Air Force training while going through college and was commissioned as an officer, and then I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas for my initial Air Force pilot training. It's a Euro-NATO program with, I had several German pilots in my class, folks from Denmark, Netherlands, Norway, so an interesting mix. There we flew T-37s and T-38s. And then I graduated and I was assigned to fly the F-111.
F-111, wow.
F-111.
When was that?
Well, it was a few years back. I graduated in 1991.
Oh, okay.
And flew that until about 1995 when they retired the F-111.
I thought so.
Yep.
I thought that they retired a long time ago.
They
so
did.
You just got your chance
Yes.
to. Nice. How fast could they go?
They would go pretty fast. Mach 1.4 down low, which is actually impressive when you're down at 500 feet or lower.
Wow.
Going that fast. Up high, it could go faster, but we never really had any reason to do that.
Okay.
But we'd see 1,000 knots of ground speed down low, which was always interesting. From there, I went to the F-117, the stealth fighter.
Wow. Yes, edgy.
Yep. Those are also retired.
Nighthawks?
Yeah.
Is that how they call them?
Yeah, the Nighthawk.
Yeah, okay.
We never really called it that flying it.
Okay.
We usually just called it the Black Jet.
Okay.
Yeah, which it was.
In fact, yes.
So I flew those. We also flew T-38s as a companion trainer,
Okay.
so I flew that more. From there, I went to the Air Force Test Pilot School in 1998, where we flew. Over the year, you fly about 25 different types of aircraft.
Wow.
A lot of them are just one flight or two flights, just to gain some experience.
But how amazing is that? I mean,
But that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's a super privilege.
Yeah. We went and visited the French Test Pilot School. We got to fly a Mirage 3.
Really?
There.
And you
yeah.
just
with an instructor to go along to help me out, because I didn't speak any French, so I couldn't necessarily read all the gauges and lights. But airplane's an airplane.
Yes.
Once you realize that they all fly about the same, and you just need to focus on a few key things like being in the right configuration at the right speed, and you can fly any of them. And so. Graduated from there and stayed at Edwards and flew F-16s in the F-16 test squadron. Did that for 3 years, flew just about every block or model of the F-16. Then moved back as an instructor at the test pilot school, flying F-16s and the Vista. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Vista F-16.
I think I heard it, but I can't associate anything to it.
It's a variable stability F-16, so you can use the computer to make it fly like anything from a Wright Flyer which is unstable to any new experimental jet that you're trying to fly. A lot of X-planes they'll simulate them in the Vista first. And we used it for student training. There were a lot of useful things.
You program whichever aircraft type into it, and the flying attitude, behavior of the aircraft will then be
within reason. But yeah, for the most part, you can make it simulate different aircraft.
That's awesome.
From there, I did my one tour out of the cockpit in Washington D.C., and then I went to Eglin, flew F-16s there, then back to Edwards, and finished out my career flying F-16s. I did have a stint. I went to Afghanistan for 6 months, flying a Global Express business jet.
Okay, well that's different.
With a bunch of electronics in the back.
Early airborne, early warning, whatever. No, whatever. Yeah, electronics. Yeah,
electronics in the back. That actually was a good experience because I flew with a pilot and a co-pilot. And that was the closest. That was the closest to anything like this that I'd ever flown.
What an amazing step this is.
So then I got hired by NASA to fly F-18s and F-15s, and started doing that. Also flew the T-34 with NASA, which is a little propeller-driven plane.
Okay.
And got checked out in this, which again was the biggest difference in airplanes I'd ever flown. It's big, it doesn't respond quickly, you need to anticipate if you need to turn around. Even just taxiing around on the ground, you need to be very careful because you can get yourself into tight spots you can't get out of. You go to turn, nothing happens fast.
Did you program your F-16 Vista?
No, I never programmed it to fly like a 747. But and so I fly this, and I also fly the King Air for NASA, which is a small twin turboprop.
Yeah.
So that's most of the planes I've flown, I guess.
Which is a lot.
Which is a bunch. Yeah.
And how does this lady here behave flying wise? I would assume. I mean, I don't know. Is it like very slow also in the air, or
it's slow? It doesn't fly like a fighter, but unfortunately I don't have any big airplanes really to compare it to. You can ask Liz those questions because she's flown a bunch of airliners and could tell you. But it seems to be very well suited for what we're doing.
Oh yeah,
flies a long time, gets us up high. That's one of the reasons they picked the SP, because it weighs less than a normal 747, and we've got 40,000 pounds of telescope in the back, so we needed to be able to offset that.
And flying high, the advantage is for getting as much above the mist or humidity.
Water vapor in the atmosphere. Yeah.
Okay.
Even if you can't see it, it's there, and so. And the higher you are, the less water vapor and the less atmosphere you still have to look through with water vapor. So,
okay, I see.
Yes, they would prefer if we were in space, but we can't get there with her.
Which is the highest she can go?
45,100.
Oh, wow.
We go to 43 because our margin between overspeed and stall gets to be very narrow. And so 43 is generally as high as we go.
Okay.
The scientists down below are usually asking throughout the night, can you climb higher? Can you climb higher? And we do at the earliest opportunity.
Okay.
We don't operate efficiently. An airline would never fly like this because they're trying to save gas.
Yeah.
So we would fly at lower altitudes if we were trying. And if we're just going somewhere,
like
ferrying into Germany or New Zealand, we'll fly at 38,000 feet and stay there the whole flight because that's the efficient altitude. But that doesn't get the science, and it's all about the science. This isn't the most exciting flying that we do, but being part of the SOFIA program is what really makes this special. Working with the folks down below, when they make discoveries down there. There's been a couple times I've heard cheering down below when they detected some molecule that they were looking for. Something only a scientist would really appreciate, but when they're that excited about it, it's great. And we've traveled all over the world with it. I've met a lot of people. So, it's been a great experience.
wouldn't trade it for anything.
And I'm sure that, you know, at one or the other airport or occasion, there must have been some aviation geeks chasing you.
Oh, wherever we go, we're being followed. We're still getting out of the airplane, and our landing was posted on the internet.
Oh yeah.
And people are talking about it. Yeah. When we get down to New Zealand, the air traffic controllers, they'll know we're coming. They'll welcome us back. They just know that they know SOFIA. It makes the local papers most of the time, so it's just been a lot of fun to be part of this program.
So it is very special, yeah?
Yes.
You say F-18 and F-15, so NASA is also flying F-15.
Yes.
I was aware of that.
The F-15 is good because it's fast. The F-18, well, it'll go Mach 1.3 or so. The F-15 will go out to Mach 2 or slightly above. And we'll actually hang experiments on the bottom. It's kind of like a big wind tunnel in the sky. Instead of putting an experiment in a wind tunnel, we just hang it on the F-15 and go Mach 2.
Which you probably could not equal in
wind
in a
tunnels
wind tunnel.
Generally can't go. I don't think they can maintain it that long. There's a few.
Oh yeah?
I'm not an expert on wind tunnels, but we'll get a run 7 or 8 minutes long at least at Mach 2.
Wow.
And we'll go a long ways, yeah.
Wow. So okay, now I understand the purpose. So you're basically you're flying a wind tunnel then on these aircraft. Just out of curiosity, I mean, NASA is a governmental organization, obviously, and while this one here is a rather civilian aircraft, obviously the F-15 would not be considered one.
Right.
But I assume they carry a November registration. These aircraft, like a civilian aircraft.
Yes.
So are they operated under the rule of FAA as a civilian aircraft, or how does that work?
Not a straight answer, but NASA's can certify our own aircraft, so we certify them for airworthiness.
All right.
And when we're in the restricted airspace by Edwards, we can do whatever we want, basically, within our own rules and processes. When we're outside of the restricted airspace, we need to follow FAA rules.
Very interesting answer, actually. Yeah. Thank you very much. But it's so, in other words, it's not under military rule.
It's not. No, it doesn't meet military rules per se.
Amazing. But obviously, I mean, I would assume that all of your fighter pilots at NASA have a background in military fighter.
Yes.
Flying.
Yeah. Not all our pilots on SOFIA and the other aircraft are necessarily military, but on the fighters, yes, you need to have that military experience.
It makes sense. Yes. The viewers during takeoff and some other scenes, they have seen some blurred out things at the horizon when we taxi to the runway. And that's obviously because in Palmdale Airport, it's not only the base of NASA, but it's also like skunk works. I mean, where I think there are, what is that? They do experiments on.
They build a variety of different planes,
Yeah.
Well, okay, they're building the X-59.
Wow.
I happen to have a patch on.
Wow. We're going to take a close-up of that one for sure. So, X-59, tell us about that one.
Okay, so it is we call it a quiet supersonic demonstrator, or a low boom flight demonstrator. We've changed the name recently to Quest, which is an acronym for Quiet Supersonic Technology. Unlike the Concorde, which made a loud sonic boom everywhere it went, we're trying to show that you can build a quiet supersonic airplane.
And it will work?
It will work.
Wow. And you're part of the team?
I am.
You're going to fly this thing?
I will.
Oh, man.
It is being built right now in Palmdale by the Lockheed Skunk Works.
No way.
For NASA. We hope to fly this year.
No way.
Don't quote me on that.
I will. Certainly. Amazing.
They are working hard on it. And yeah, the whole point is just to really demonstrate that it can be done. That you can design an airplane from scratch to have a quiet supersonic signature.
So we got a nice channel here to get the word out to the people. So whatever you want to demonstrate. Okay, guys, I think this is the right moment to create a sort of friendship here. Could you just please open this this thing there. Yeah, this side.
Sure, what do you have?
And I got something for you inside there. You see this white thing? Could you grab one,
Ah,
please?
boy.
I think now is the moment to create a certain team spirit here, you know?
Okay, I can wear this. I don't really look good in hats.
You do. With that one, you do.
So,
welcome to the team.
Yeah.
No, but this is amazing. This is amazing. So, whenever it's gonna fly, you will be flying.
it'll be the end of this year or hopefully early into next year.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been working on it for several years. Lockheed is quite busy trying to finish it up.
Wow. So somewhere in the hangars there,
yep.
Basically it is existing already in some.
If you Google X-59, you'll see pictures of it.
Wow.
It's not painted yet, so you see a lot of the green metal.
Primer color there.
Yep. But it's
super nice.
It's coming along. We've got simulators running that we're spending a lot of time in right now, simulating how it's going to fly.
Super nice. Super nice. I read about it. I wasn't aware it was that advanced already.
Yes.
So, and this is then to pave the way, I think, for mainly civilian use of supersonic.
Yes. Other than demonstrating that it can be done, we then want to fly it over population areas and do surveys of folks on the ground and basically show that if you're this quiet, nobody's going to be disturbed by it, and then petition to have the rules changed.
Wow.
And that would then pave the way for manufacturers to start building supersonic airplanes. They'd have to be quiet, but they would be able to use the technology we've developed.
Wow. I mean, I think the world of NASA is really super exciting here, yeah?
It is.
And earlier you were mentioning that we have to get back before sunrise, and I don't get that point. I understand we departed at sunset, so you know, as soon as it gets started they can focus there. But wouldn't it extend the scientists' time to watch the stars if they just continue until sunrise in the air, and then once the sun is there we land? Why?
So the problem is we've got a very large, highly polished mirror in the back. We don't want the sun to ever hit that mirror. If the door were to stick open,
you're turning into a laser weapon then.
We could damage internal components in the aircraft and the telescope itself. Certainly we don't want to reflect that anywhere on the ground. So we've flown 880 flights. The door has stuck open a few times.
Really?
Mostly early on in flight test. Only once since we've been observing, but for that reason we ensure that we are always going to be on the ground before the sun comes up.
All right, especially when it gets stuck open, then you know you have to. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's a very interesting answer to this question. Yeah. Really.
So we the pilots aren't very involved in the science that's going on down below, but our job is to make sure that all the people and all the equipment comes back in one piece, so it can be used again.
Which includes the telescope.
Which includes the telescope.
Okay.
Another issue, if the door were to stick open, we do not want to fly through rain or land. We've encountered this in New Zealand a few times where Christchurch and any alternate that we're going to go to is forecast to have rain.
Wow.
We won't fly.
All right.
Because if that door sticks open, we'd have a swimming pool in the back.
And the damage is...
The damage, who knows how long it would take. So our job is to look at the big picture and make sure that it's safe to operate, and we're all going to come back and everything's going to work the next time.
Which aircraft type would you want to fly once in your lifetime? But I mean, this is really a stupid question in this context because
there's a list. There's not just one, but
there is one.
I don't know if there's just one. I probably got a list, but probably the P-51 from World War II.
The P-51.
The P-51.
It should be doable. There should be someone out there who's who could invite Clue for a P-51 ride.
Well, probably if I.
Okay, guys.
If I had some money.
That's awesome.
I could probably get a P-51 ride, but that's one of the ones I'd like to. Because for its day in World War II, it was
probably the best fighter of World War II. The F-86 was probably the best fighter of its time.
F-86.
Yeah.
Nice. So okay, wow, it's so nice because usually, you know, people, I would say 50% of the cases the answer would be Concorde. But Concorde would make absolutely no sense in your case.
I'll take the X-59
yes.
over the Concorde.
Yeah, I would.
Because I won't wake sleeping babies with this.
Yes,
Yeah.
way better. Super nice. Thank you very much for having a moment for us as well.
Of course, yeah.
We've already been, you know, introduced to a couple of stations and scientists here, and but you have different screens. You're sitting in a different location. I'm sure you're doing something different.
Yes.
What are you doing here?
So here I'm operating the telescope, and these are my cameras. I see in the optical light over here, whereas the science instrument that you've talked to already tonight, I'm sure, sees in the infrared. So when I operate the telescope, that basically means I am making sure that we're pointed exactly where we need to be pointed so that I can set the science instrument up for success. And so when I operate the telescope, at the beginning of what is called the science leg, where the plane turns exactly where I need to turn, I will do the initial acquisition. And so what that means is I see a bunch of stars and their names on my screens, and I make sure the names of the stars are lined up exactly with the actual star themselves. When this is not moving around all crazy, you can see the way that they're supposed to be. And so that's when I acquire and I do my lining up over here. And I can show you that in about a couple of minutes. We're gonna get on to the next leg.
Okay.
And that is basically what I do over here as a telescope operator. And then I make sure, as they're observing over here, that nothing is going wrong. The telescope is still tracking what it needs to track on, so it's not like losing itself, you know, kind of in space like that. So that is the basics of what I do over here.
Wow, thank you very much. And I mean, what is this like circular thing there? What does that?
So this is my telescope assembly graphic, TA graphic, and this is basically showing the face of the telescope and how far in this left and right direction over here that it can turn. So the telescope is pretty constrained by the airplane. It can't move a whole lot from left to right. It's only got +3 or -3 degrees.
Okay.
And so what this is showing is the time I have left until what's called a rewind.
Okay.
And basically, as things are moving across the night sky, the telescope has to track them so that we get, you know, a consistent amount of data and everything like that. But it can only go so far until it reaches that edge. And so I have to send a rewind, and that puts the telescope back into the beginning of where it needs to be. So that's what this colorful graphic is showing. These yellow parts are called margins, and that's kind of a warning to let me know that it's very close to the edge. It's not, you know, like hurting anything yet, but I should keep an eye out. And then these red edges right here at the 3 are when it can become an issue and the telescope can't move anymore. And so it really depends on how fast the science object is rotating across the sky and how many times I will need to rotate per leg or whatever.
And how do you actually operate it? I mean, you would expect a joystick or something like that, no, but it all goes digitally, right?
It is. It's all on the computer. I do the physical operations at the beginning of the legs. By this main screen right here is what I focus on. And so this right here, this button tells me I can move to this science position. And so these positions are something that has been created and I have taken already prior to getting on the plane. And so the fact that I've made the positions and now they end up on the plane with like a USB drive and stuff like that, you know, old school stuff. And then I use this main panel right here in order to tell it this is my science position. Like this is the galaxy or star, whatever I want to look at, you need to move here. And so you can see it over here, the cameras will move as the telescope moves and I can watch it that way. And then I use, you know, the rest of this to do a quick and dirty acquisition and kind of make sure everything's lined up. So this is my main panel that I use tonight.
Okay. Amazing. So many figures and numbers and things. How did you get into this? Did you, as a young girl, realize you want to be a telescope operator on an aircraft, or
Well, it's very unique, so I don't know that I got that specific when I was a kid. But I grew up in Florida on the east coast of the United States, and I grew up pretty close to Kennedy Space Center, which is another NASA center, which is where they launched the space shuttle from in the early 2000s. And so I got to watch the space shuttle launch and come back home quite often, living in South Florida when I was a kid. So that's, I think, what kind of sparked my initial interest in space, and I knew I always wanted to do something with space. And then I went to college and I got my bachelor's degree in astrophysics. And then I graduated in 2020 and I was looking for a full-time job. Stumbled across this one. Somehow they called me back and I ended up here.
Wow, lovely. That's a nice story.
Yeah. It's very cool. I'm very lucky to be here.
Yeah, really nice. Super. And how often do you come to fly?
I will fly usually twice a week for 3 to 4 weeks in a row. And I'll do alternating nights. So usually it's a Monday and a Wednesday night or a Tuesday and a Thursday night. So Sophia the plane flies 4 nights a week, every week pretty much. I personally will fly 2 nights a week for 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the schedule.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
John, thank you very much for having some extra time with me back here.
No problem.
I understand you are constantly busy at the engineers panel, right? So we got a few minutes and I try to squeeze it to the best of my abilities. What is it that you have to constantly do there at your FE panel?
Well, this time in the flight, I'm at the point where we have to use what's called fuel heat. And it all depends on how cold the fuel is, how cold it is outside, and so right now I'm on like a 10-minute cycle.
Wow.
Usually it would be like a 30-minute cycle, but it's really cold out there tonight. So it's
how cold is it?
I think it was minus 65 degrees.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's extremely cold in fact.
So my fuel temperature, the engines are like minus 15 degrees, and so I have to get fuel heat on there every 10 minutes.
John, as I mentioned before, I'm always, if there is a flight engineer on board, I know I'm on a classic airplane and this is what I like the most. So I'm particularly happy to see you here being part of the crew. For how many years are you flight engineer now?
Well, I've only been with NASA for 3 years. I flew 747s for the airlines, a company called Evergreen International, for 23 years. I've got about 16,000 hours on the 747. I started in the Air Force on C5s. That's my flight engineer experience mostly. I flew 747s for Las Vegas Sands, a casino in Las Vegas called Sands. They have 2 747s. Well, they have one left. One of them got destroyed in a hurricane. But when I was flying for them, they had 2 747 SPs. We flew high rollers all over the world and celebrities, and that was pretty interesting also. So, and I've been here, like I said, for 3 years, a little over 3 years.
And you know, when I'm speaking with pilots, a very common question of mine is, you know, out there's a lot of young people who are looking at a career in aviation. Promote your profession. Now I think if you would promote the profession of a flight engineer, it would be a little bit unfair towards the young viewers, right?
It's pretty much a dying career field. The Air Force, they still have a few positions in the U.S. Air Force, but civilian-wise,
not much left,
No, it's not going to happen.
But your background before you became flight engineer is probably an engineering one anyway, isn't it?
Yes, we call maintenance.
Maintenance.
I started in the military as maintenance, and that was a requirement before you can move up to cross-train to a flight engineer.
And I think that's still a good recommendation for your career path, guys, right?
Yes, because I'm not a pilot. I have no pilot license at all.
Yep.
I mean, I've flown a little bit, but I have no license.
Okay.
So if something happens to those 2 pilots up there, we're in big trouble. Don't depend on me.
Well, you could have told me after the flight, but that's fine.
I'll get us close to the airport.
Okay. At least.
I promise.
At least. No, well, that's good. And how did you get into aviation? I mean, was it just?
Well, my father was a pilot.
Oh yeah.
Well, he's also he was in the Air Force. He flew B-29s in the Air Force as a pilot.
B-29s.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then he got out and he worked for an airline called Capital International.
I know that one.
It was a charter, more or less charter, cargo passenger worldwide. And basically, I grew up, seeing him leave, come home, and when I joined the military, I knew I would eventually my eyes kind of prevented me from ever becoming a pilot.
All right.
Yeah, in the military. And but I was perfectly happy to be a flight engineer. But that's, if you want to talk about how I got started, I would say from my father.
Okay.
My older brother, he's deceased. He was a helicopter pilot. My younger brother's a pilot. My son's a pilot.
Really?
Yeah, I'm the only one here. I'm the only one who's never been in an airplane by himself.
Which aircraft is your son flying?
Oh, well, he flies Black Hawk for the Army National Guard helicopters.
Cool.
But he also flies little commuter jets for American Airlines. It's actually called Piedmont out of Philadelphia.
Wow,
so
nice.
Those CRJ 175s or 145s. I forgot what it is, but just a little commuter jet.
ERJ, I guess. The MRI.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. I call them Barbie jets.
Okay.
Don't have a flight engineer.
Yeah.
Me and my son, we're always, you pilots. It's good. I admire everything he's done. He's done real well.
Great. How old is he?
He's 31.
Wow, very nice.
Yes.
Very nice.
My youngest.
Well, and he will probably experience at least towards the end of his career commercial aircraft that will fly with single pilots, right? Yeah. So the evolution will likely continue.
I think so.
Beyond flight engineers, which we hardly ever see.
I know. I feel so. I can't tell you how fortunate I feel to have this job. It's a dream for me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Very, very sad to hear, though, that.
Yes, yeah, it's but I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at going to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm looking at flying in maybe the end of August and September. I'm looking forward to that.
And you never know how life turns out. I mean, Pratt & Whitney, Canada, or whatever. I think, although flight engineers are a dying breed, I think you're like really a precious resource because there's not many of you left at the same time. So I think there should be good opportunities to keep you busy beyond.
Well, and I'm going to be 67 years old, so it's not a big deal for me. I kind of feel sorry for some of the younger. We have the younger engineer here, and I don't know what he's going to do. I'm not really sure, but I feel sorry for the younger people. For me, I feel sorry just for myself because I love the job, but that's okay.
That's a nice way to put it.
I would have done this job for free. That's how much I know. Well, I wouldn't say that, but I can say it now. But when I was first hired, I wouldn't say that.
So once the film is released, this may probably already be after the retirement of SOFIA. So that's a safe thing then. Yeah.
I mean, I work with. I mean, you just interviewed Crew.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with some of the most qualified, experienced pilots. It's just so easy because at Evergreen we always had a constant turnover. So you're flying flying with a first officer who basically, you constantly have to watch them, and so here it's really easy for me.
High level,
It's really been nice.
I could notice that during the day, highest degree of professionalism with I think a very nice interpersonal. Soft skill element to it as well. I like that.
Yeah.
High level, professionalism, but good sense of humor where it fits. Very nice combination.
It really is. I really enjoy it. So, gonna enjoy the next few months and go from there.
John, what's happening when the fuel freezes in our engines here?
Well, obviously, I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen. But
glad to hear, because I don't want to keep you busy for too long. I mean, I'm glad to speak with you.
Well, the good thing is before, there's a light that will come on the panel, and hopefully somebody up there would see it. It's called an icing light.
Oh, good.
And that would give me time to get the fuel heat on. But if for some reason somebody didn't see the icing light and get the fuel heat on, you have your fuel control. When your fuel pump could freeze up, your inlet filter, it could actually prevent fuel from getting to the engines.
So I don't want to keep
it could
too
be,
busy.
it could be a problem.
Yes, somewhere over the middle of the Pacific. Yeah.
But they're watching for me up there. I did fuel heat right before I came back here.
Perfect.
So
Thank you very much. Okay, no, that's excellent. So this flight engineer panel that we've seen there already during takeoff. For me, if I look at that for too long, I start getting dizzy, and I may eventually faint because it's so complex. What the heck is all that?
Well, it looks complex, but you got to remember there's kind of 4 of everything. You got 4 engines.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
So you got 4 generators and all those switches that go with the generators, and you got 4 hydraulic systems and all those switches. So it looks like a lot. And once you get your scan down, it's just second nature. You just know what you're looking at, and it's just experience. Once you do it, it's really not. Now Sophia's a little different. I mean, I flew cargo, and that was real easy. It's a little different here because obviously I got to open the door.
Yeah.
Work with the mission director on that, and also I've got to work with mission director on cabin temperatures down there certain times. It's got to be maintained, and so it's a lot different than a regular 747 being on Sophia. But I love it. It keeps you busy. You never get bored. You never get tired.
And what about this? I mean, the science aspect. I found it interesting during the mission briefing that you actually really get this. I think quite enthusiastic scientists brief on what they are trying to research during this mission. I mean, how is that for you?
Well, you've done something I've never done. I have never been to a mission briefing because as soon as we're done the crew briefing, I come to the airplane.
Absolutely.
So you know more about the mission briefing than I do.
I even explained to viewers before. Okay. I should edit that out. I'm not too sure if I leave it in. Probably I do.
I've never been to a mission briefing yet. So,
but still, the science aspect to it, and the fact, do you have any, do you relate to that as well? Is that also interesting for you, or are you not really?
It's very interesting to me, although I don't relate to it as much as some of these guys. I read the reports after every flight. There's mission directors put out a report.
Oh yeah.
And I read these reports and try to. And I understand, maybe 10% of it, but it's very. And I go down and watch them, for 5 or 10 minutes if I have the time to go walk the main deck, and it's really interesting. It's just, to be honest with you, I really don't understand a lot of it. I wish I did, but I don't. And like I said, I've only been here 3 years, so I think that would take a few more years for me to understand what those guys are doing, guys and girls are doing.
Even the language they use is. It's on.
But I love watching them though because it's just so interesting. But
yeah,
and it's kind of same for them. They come up and watch us, and that's interesting for them. But
yep.
It's something different.
Yeah, good comparison. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
hey John, now that that you are so polite and supportive with me and the viewers and giving us such nice insights here all the way, I got a little. Just stretch out.
You got
little souvenir for you.
Air clips.
Now
yes. And it's adjustable too because I got a fat head.
Yeah, so do I. It is adjustable because of my fat head.
I'll adjust it later, but thank you very much. That's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And I have seen some the Geo Sky. You did the Geo Sky.
You've seen that?
Yes, I've seen that.
Really, John. Thank you very much. I don't. I always have these freezing engines.
They're watching for me.
No, I'm just kidding. I know. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And then I'm looking forward to watch you during the approach and landing again up front.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
So it's just a few minutes before top of descent, and we are back for landing. So I don't want to bother you anymore. Just maybe one last question, if I may. How did the flight go for you?
It was a very smooth and uneventful flight, and that is the best kind.
Yep.
seemed like it went fairly quickly.
I think that's because of you guys made it go quickly.
Thank you. I hope in a positive way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Kept us busy. Gave us something to do. And you'll see we get a little busy once they're done with science and we get ready to descend. Because of the telescope, we actually have limits on our descent rate. They don't want us to descend basically because of cooling or heating, warming, and moisture. We have limits on our descent rate. Once we're below 18,000, we're limited to 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet per minute, and then below 10,000, it's 1,500 feet per minute, which is a little bit of a restriction compared to most other airplanes. And so a lot of times we get close to the field and we're still too high and we're really scrambling to get down.
Okay. And at which point will you close the telescope?
Actually, as soon as we start our turn, they're going to
About
close
1
the
minute.
telescope. I'm going to turn the thunderstorm lights out. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Coming out.
Okay, standing by for LFD in the lower limit. URD seal has been verified deflated. We are at our lower limit. Step 2, rotor switch if in track to open.
I am in open.
I see open, waiting 5.
You're going to just correct back to course or do you want to direct to?
I'm going to correct back.
Rotor switch to close.
I am enclosed. I see movement.
Good movement.
Door light is out. Looks like movement stopped.
I show fully closed, movement stopped, and CDDS enabled, disable, switch to disable.
I'm in disabled.
I see disabled. Inflating the seal downstairs, and then we'll get the breakers. Checklist complete.
Thank you.
I'm going to go mag.
Oh, still. Okay, I'm in mag as well.
Okay, steady heading 410, ready for caging.
Just a minute. It's just rolling back.
Okay.
And now wings level.
Copy. Flight deck mission, TA caged, ready for descent.
Copy, thank you.
Okay, gonna make a radio change. LA Center, good morning. NASA 747 Heavy Flight Level 410, Block 430, ready to start our descent.
That's 747 Los Angeles Center, good morning. Descent and maintain flight level 310.
Down to 310, NASA 747. We go 31.
I see 310. And we are starting our descent.
Descent check.
Descent check, please. Thank you.
FMS heading.
In mag.
Mag.
Ignition is flight start. Fuel panel boost pumps are on. Number 1 and 4. Cross feeds are open. Circuit breakers have been checked. PFDs, MFDs, and nav.
Set for the approach.
Set for the approach.
Airspeed bugs.
For gross weight 410, flaps 30, 130 ref, 135 target set.
Okay, for 410 gross weight, 30 flap approach, 130 rep, 135 target set.
Thrust is 1.42, go around E%.
1.42, go around E%.
Approach minimums.
Set.
Auto brakes.
And they're on men.
Approach briefing.
Complete unless there are any questions.
Understood. Pressurization is set for landing. Standing by transmission.
Thank you.
Easily have one won by Edwards. The question is when they'll let you go lower than that. So for our guests, Palmdale is not open as we come back and land at this hour. So we actually use pilot-activated lighting to turn the lights on ourselves, and we make calls in the blind and land uncontrolled. Our maintenance crew knows we're coming, and they actually will go out and sweep the runway and make sure there's nothing on it. We're cleared to do that.
All landing logo lights.
On.
And mission, are you ready for landing?
We've got one in the bathroom, almost there.
Okay, we'll stand by there then.
Flight deck mission, we are ready for landing on the main deck.
Thank you. Seatbelts on?
You can turn it on.
No. Where am I? There. Got the right ones in the dark here.
On approach, descent approach checklist complete.
Thank you. One to go.
Okay.
Master 747, send pilot's discretion to maintain 5,000.
Pilot's discretion to 5,000 knots, of course.
Pilot's discretion 5,000.
It's actually giving us plenty of time.
Palmdale altimeter is 29er 89er. Winds are 180 at niner.
2989, that's the 747.
2989, I copy winds 180. Okay, flaps 1, please.
This one's got flaps coming up.
So we're 250
Green
for
light.
below 10, and on rapid descent rate of 1500.
Copy. Flaps 1 good to 170.
Thank you. Starting to turn toward ether. yet.
That's the 747 Heavy, cleared direct ether, cross ether at 5,000, clear Dallas from 925 approach.
747 Heavy, copy, clear direct ether, cross ether, at or above 5,000, cleared ILS 25 approach.
FedEx 1417 Heavy, contact SoCal approach 128.75.
Flaps 5.
Flaps 5. Green line.
Thank you. We're good down to 167 knots.
Okay.
Time to go.
$2,500.
Altitude hold 5,000.
To 209, the intercept heading out of.
Yeah, you can go ahead and put that now if you want. And I'll plan to intercept the glide slope from 5,000.
And about 4 to I'll cancel.
Okay.
As soon as you make the turn, I'll also try to get the lights on.
Flaps 10.
It's good. Flaps go to 10.
Good down to 156.
Checks.
Find a heading.
Short range nav.
Short range nav. And approach.
So we get your lights. They're actually already on.
Okay, I got him.
So that should be medium.
I'm taking it off autopilot. I see it. Flaps 20.
Speed's good. Flaps good. 20.
Gear down. Speed brakes are armed. Landing checklist.
Landing gear.
Down green light.
Speed brakes.
Armed. Flaps 30.
Flaps tracking 30.
Runway turn off lights.
On.
Flaps.
30 plane 30 indicated green light.
Hydraulics are normal. Brake pressure.
Check speed.
Check.
4 landing checklist complete.
Thank you. We'll do 5,000 for missed approach.
Josh approach NASA 747. Approaching Florida. I'd like to cancel it this time.
NASA 747 Heavy, roger. IFR cancellation received. And radar services terminated. Frequency change for the Cockpit Crew.
Okay. NASA 747. Palmdale traffic, NASA 747 Heavy. Final approach fix. Runway 25. Landing Palmdale. Palmdale traffic, NASA 747 Heavy. Final approach fix. Landing runway 25. Palmdale. Crosswind's actually increasing a little as you get lower.
That's from the same direction, which is unusual.
About 8 knots right across so far. Traffic NASA 747 Heavy landing runway 25 Palmdale. Palmdale traffic NASA 747 Heavy landing runway 25 Palmdale. On speed on course on blind.
Approaching minimums.
Insight landing.
Minimums. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Spoilers are extended.
About 110 knots.
Coming on the brakes. I'll go down to the next
Auto brakes are off.
Yeah, they didn't really seem like they were doing much. You got 60 knots.
Out of gear steering's armed.
Thank you.
To the right, you got 15. There's 10. down at 54.
After landing checklist, please.
After landing check. Fuel at touchdown was 27.5.
Thank you.
Palmdale traffic now 747 heavies off runway 25 at hotel taxiing down the LZ. Palmdale traffic now 747 heavy off runway 25 at hotel taxiing down the LZ. Clear, right?
After landing check, body of your steering is already armed. Speed brakes.
Down.
Reverser lights were not used. Flaps. They're moving.
Tracking a 5.
Looks like they're 5.
Flaps are 5.
Stabilizer trim.
Six.
TCAS.
Standby.
Weather radar.
Off.
Off.
Landing lights, runway turn-off lights. Just leave them on.
Yeah, I got the runway turn-off lights off.
The ignition is off. Pack valves are as required. Number 3 is open. Outflow valves are checked open. APU is started. ADPs 1 and 4 are in continuous. And engines after 5 minutes. 1 and 4 shut down.
2 more minutes to go.
Yep, I've got a timer on that.
Brakes are even, top of the green.
Okay, FE, you good for me to
I'm good.
Kill 1 and 4?
1 and 4, please.
Okay, 1 and 4 are cut off. Fuel flows are 0.
After landing checklist complete.
Thank you.
Palmdale traffic now 747 heavy crossing runway 25 at Papa. Palmdale traffic now 747 heavy crossing runway 25 at Papa. Final and the runway both look clear.
I concur. We got all our landing lights on. Good.
Yep.
Time for lights.
Sorry. Clear, right? Palmdale traffic now 747 heavy taxiing Papa Echo Sierra. Palmdale traffic now 747 heavy taxiing Papa Echo Sierra. And NASA 747 heavies taxiing on Sierra, crossing 22 to Park NASA.
Roger, 747 heavy. We're going to have traffic on taxiway Alpha out of your area.
Okay.
Is that okay, sir?
That's affirmative. We're about to cross 22 and then we'll be on Sierra to the NASA compound.
Thank you, sir.
You couldn't see us?
Palmdale traffic, NASA 747 Heavy crossing runway 22 at Sierra.
Final's clear, runway's clear.
Clear right. Palmdale traffic, NASA 747 Heavy crossing runway 22 at Sierra. Okay, 7 knots, clear right.
Thank you. Made it through the slalom course.
Yep. Still got to get around the big pole. Yeah, see your guy with the wands.
I got him.
Start bringing the flaps down. You can watch, John.
Got it.
Tracking to 10.
Yeah, it's dropping to a little bit above 6.4 right now.
Coming to 20.
It's at almost 6.
Coming to 30. Clear right.
Yeah, it's at 6.5, so it's below the green. Maybe it just requires a service, and they can look for a small leak. It's obviously not going to be a very big leak.
I think our ground speed is off. We're going to have several knots when we shut down. Showing 10 now. Suppose I could have gotten those off sooner. Yeah, stopped with 4 knots of ground speed.
Yeah, parking brake is set. Pressure is normal. Parking checklist, please.
Parking check. You should set pressure normal. Seatbelt sign.
Off.
Flap.
Storm lights coming on.
Flaps.
Down.
Mission, are you ready for a power transfer?
Stand by on power transfer.
Stand by.
So did we end up with a couple of write-ups on the way back in? Is that
Well,
what's
when
happening?
I turned the ADP off, it came back up a little from 6.5 to just into the green now.
Now ground speed 0.
FE mission ready, power transfer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Power transfer complete.
Copy.
APU
That
is
was
on.
smooth.
APU bleed air is as required. Engines.
Okay, 2 and 3 cut off.
Talks are in.
Thank you. Fuel flow 0.
Beacons.
Off.
Anti ice.
Off.
Emergency exit lights.
Off.
Probe heat.
Off.
Window heat.
Off.
Stand by. Pack valves 1 and 2 are closed. 3 is on. Thrust levers.
Checked forward.
PFDs and MFD screens.
And mine are off.
Off.
Transponder.
It is standby.
RTU radios.
Off.
Off.
ADPs are off. Fuel pumps and valves are off and closed. Galley power coming off. Radio master bus switches
off.
IRS switches
Off.
Standby power switch is off. ESIS battery switch is disarmed. Flight deck lights. And runway turn-off lights.
My lights are all off.
Off.
Runway turn-off lights are off.
Main deck doors.
Are in the process of being disarmed. Stand by.
Okay. You guys can get your oxygen mask and regulators while you're up there, I guess.
Mine's stowed 100%.
Stowed 100%.
And oxygen valve, I'll get that later. Oh, by the way, mine's still 100% off. Chocks.
They are in.
Parking brake.
Released.
So we're standing by main deck doors. And I'll clean everything else up after that.
Main deck doors disarmed.
Thank you. And parking checklist complete.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Good flight.